by Chicago. I know we're gonna meet some more wind today. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm one way down in Florida, while the sun shines every day. Oh yes, I am.
I said, talk to your daughter. 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 Baby, talk to your daughter, 'cause I ain't gonna let you be. All right, I got it now.
Sixth, 2021 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, and I'm Susan Klaus-Smith. I'm the acting chair for the commission tonight. I am also the vice chair. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. The staff will then present their staff report, and we will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will begin asking questions in the same order as the presentation. When coming up to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal, and then the public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, the Historic Preservation Development Review, or HPDRC comments, if any, and the testimony given at the public hearing. Please note that the ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. Now, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and I will ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves, and I'll start on my left.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Dan Myers, architect.
Stephen Sutton, architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair.
Brent Taylor, building contractor.
And again, I'm Susan Klaus-Smith. I'm an architect. And tonight we have with us staff Ron Vila and Beverly Jusak. And then our city attorney is Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. Then we'll have a reading of the minutes and a motion, if we can, to enter both the November 1st and November 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes into the record.
I move to approve the meeting minutes from November 1st, 2021 and November 3rd, 2021.
I second that motion.
All in favor, state aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Move on to Ron.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under announcements this evening, we have two. Just wanted to remind everybody that starting in January 2022, our public hearings will start at 5:30 instead of 6. So please document that. We're trying to move it up so we get out of here a little earlier, and a half an hour usually helps out. And then in your packets, we have the administrative reviews for your review of our monthly process that we do internally. Moving down the conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, Ms. Pettis-Mackel will address the board at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they've had any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
Not I.
None.
I have none.
Additionally, will the Commissioners state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding anything that's on the agenda?
I have none.
None.
Not I.
Okay, thank you.
Moving to continuations, we have one that's reflected on tonight's agenda, which is ARC 21-541 for the address of 308 East Idlewild Avenue. This was requested by the agent to continue to the December 8th, 2021 public hearing at 6 p.m., and this was to balance out the agenda since we have 6 this evening. If I could get a motion for that, please.
I move to grant a continuous in case ARC 21-541 for the property located at 308 East Idlewild Avenue to the December 8th, 2021 public hearing at 6 p.m.
I second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, motion carries.
At this time, we'll move to the swearing in. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand. That's including staff.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth?
The first case this evening is ARC 21-450/VAC 21-09. This is for the address of 1701 North Florida Avenue. The request in front of you this evening is for a recommendation of vacating of an alley. Past action on this on your staff report on page 3. This was heard on November 3rd for a recommendation to City Council. At that time, there was a 2-2 tie vote. So it automatically continues to the next public hearing, which is this evening. Having said that, I believe we're going to open up the public hearing.
Kamaria Pettis-Malcolm from the City Attorney's Office. If the applicant can just confirm that for the record, that is what?
Yes.
Okay, so
Before we get started, I want to do a little history, and then I want to show you a couple of images to get you familiar with the presentation that's going to happen this evening. So on your monitor, this is the Sanborn map. Our property in question is highlighted in the green shaded area. The history was that this came forward for a PD recommendation, and I want to give you a little bit of past action because they kind of overlap. So on the corner of Florida Avenue to 7th, to Morgan, to Oak, this was the property that was reviewed on the November public hearing cycle. And at that public hearing, the board made a motion. The ARC had reviewed the reference recommendation to rezone from RM24, from CI, from PD to PD. There were multiple zonings attached to that parcel. For the request located at 1701 North Florida Avenue, 202 East 7th Avenue, 1802 through 1808 North Morgan Street, 209 East Oak Avenue, at the meeting on November 3rd, 2021. The ARC voted to recommend denial as presented at the public hearing with the following condition. The proposal does not conform to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances as stated in Chapter 27-113A2J with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances with respect to the scale, the height and width, the massing, and for residential setbacks, orientation, and site coverage. That motion went forward for the denial with a 3-1 vote that was carried. That is not in front of you this evening. So that was for the PD on the site of the whole block. In front of you this evening, we have that was a 2-2 tie vote that was continued from the November public hearing as the alley in question. There's a T alley. So the alley runs north and south, and then there's a portion of the alley that runs east and west. I wanted to show approximate location within the overall vicinity of Tampa Heights. It's on the southern quadrant within the local district. This is showing a current aerial of that T alley that is still open, that runs north and south, and east and west. I wanted to go to the surface of the alleys. There are some conditions associated when we get to the motion. That if the motion, wherever the motion goes, but if it's a favorable motion, that some of the historic material stays behind. So you see the granite curbing that flanks the alley, and you see the historic brick. Just looking at the alley in different segments. and some of it has not been kept as much as others, but the historical brick is there in parts, and then there's asphalt. Bricks are protected by ordinance through City Council, and there's a provision that I've stated with the chapter 22.305 that if the alley is to be vacated, that the historic materials be returned to the City of Tampa. At this time, that concludes the photo presentation and my introduction. These pictures will be here if you need to reference them anymore, and I believe the agent could address the board at this time.
Thank you, Ron. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tyler Hudson. My address is 400 North Ashley Drive, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Given the cause of this being continued as a tie vote, I'm very happy to see an odd number of you here this evening. I'm going to be extremely brief in this presentation. You can turn on the Elmo. Sorry. I would just like to note that your expert staff with historic preservation has recommended approval of this motion. It is not a common thing for staff to recommend approvals of right-of-way vacatings in the historic district. But given some of the nuances with this T-shaped alley, namely the fact that there's no possible connection to Florida Avenue due to that being an FDOT administered road, as well as precedent, which I'll show you in a bit to the south, I would like to comment on Ron's point. Chapter 22, which is outside of the Land Development Code, that's obviously a transportation technical standard, has a process in place for bricks, but I will say on behalf of the applicant that in connection with any certificate of appropriateness that might come back to you for new construction on this property, we want to use as much of the bricks as possible. It's just not totally up to us. It does have to go through the process where they would be removed, palletized, given to the city, but it is our intent from a design perspective to use those as much as possible in connection with any certificate of appropriateness that we might come back to you for. I would also note, and let me just get a better depiction. If you see the number 2 in 207 East Oak Avenue, there's an asphalt area there. The applicant is under contract with the City of Tampa to acquire that parcel. I'll leave that at that, but that contract has been approved by the Tampa City Council. And with that, they are either under contract or have acquired the entire block. So that is part of the reason, given that there is unified, they're pending or existing unified site control, to have the T-shaped alley vacated. Last point, you see the red arrow, that's the block in question. The block immediately to the south, which is the Salvation Army office building, that's on the right side of Florida Avenue as you drive north, had a similar T-shaped alley, really an identical configuration. That
I'm not sure that that's actually in view what you intend for us to see. The one you had? No, the one you had on top. There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. You wanted us to see the red lines, right?
The red lines and the
Dotted
yellow
lines,
arrow, so
yes.
a little bit more than I can do on screen. But just for precedent value, and again, the southern portion, the southerly adjacent lot, the Salvation Army office building, that is not in the historic district. Our parcel is on the actual border, but I'm just providing that for a fuller sense of context. And with that, I appreciate your time for review a second time hearing this presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation, to provide you some guidance with the applicable standards that you're going to review this request with. This is Chapter 27, 113, your duties and power, as parentheses A, parentheses 2, parentheses J, with regards to the application for rezoning, land use change classifications, or comprehensive plan amendments, to review the recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historic integrity and appearance. In reviewing the application, the immediate vicinity has been altered in a negative way, and the alleys cannot be brought back. this continuation of the alley does not provide an economic, a viable engine to move forward. Staff's findings that this application is consistent with the Tampa City of Code of Ordinances. The language above with the Secretary of Interior standards discuss the importance of maintaining and defining the grid. In this instance, the north-south alley has no connection with the abutting block, and therefore the T-shaped alley doesn't function as it intended to do. The alley grid never intended to cross over Florida Avenue as indicated on the maps that were shown this evening. There are 2 bullet items attached to this, is if this is to move forward, that the request should comply with section 22.305 with the transportation code retaining of any historic materials, so that's the granite and the brick. And when we reviewing the abutting blocks, shows that this request would be compatible with the previous vacatings. So as I stated, you're going to move forward tonight and discuss a motion to City Council. Please make your motion strong and clear as staff will present your intentions to City Council. And attached to this request, we have 1 letter of support from the Tampa Heights Civic Association for the vacating of the alley. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. We'll now open this up to public comment. If there's anyone who would like to speak either for or against this alley vacation, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask questions starting on my right, if there are any.
I have a question for staff, Ron. In making your presentation, you made you stated a historical point of action by this committee to recommend to the City Council to deny an original PD rezoning for the whole of this block, if you will. Has City Council made any action on that denial at this point in time?
Once again, that's not in front of you this evening, but that recommendation from this governing body will be heard at City Council this Thursday, the 9th. Along with that motion that you forwarded, they will also be reviewing this alley vacating is also on their agenda for the 9th.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
So I'd have a question for the applicant. Is there a purpose of vacating the alley if the development is not approved?
Kamaria Pettis-Malcolm for the City Attorney's Office. So, Commissioner Taylor, I understand your question as to the purpose, but the only thing that's before you is whether or not the board or the commission determines that this alley should be vacated. I understand the desire to understand the project as a whole, but that's not before you today. The only thing that's before you today is whether or not you want to recommend to City Council whether or not the alley should be vacated. And that's the only thing that's before you.
Okay.
If I can say one thing, representing the applicant who owns or controls the entirety of the block, it is our belief that any redevelopment that anyone would propose for a full block site, in order to take advantage of the opportunities presented by the Tampa Heights design standards, would seek a right-of-way vacating. And I hope that doesn't run afoul of any prohibitions on what I can and cannot say, but it's our belief, again, that any redevelopment proposal for this entire block would include a right-of-way vacating of the entire T.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
I have none.
Commissioner Sutton? Any others?
I have no further question at this time.
All right, I have no question either. So the applicant, you are allowed some rebuttal time if you'd like to take the 5 minutes they're allotted.
No, ma'am, I'll waive rebuttal. To be clear, we agree with the conditions that were referenced in the staff report regarding compliance with Chapter 22. Thank you for your
All
time.
right. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll discuss the case. Any discussion points, or anyone want to entertain a motion? Was there a question? No, okay.
It was.
I would just like to say that I think that the project is a very good one. But we are here to discuss a very limited aspect of that, which is the historic preservation. And when we say that we will not, if we are to determine that we do not wish to vacate the alley, or if we are to determine, in my view, if we are determined that we wish to vacate the alley, then that sets a precedent. And I think that because our concern is for historic preservation, that is a difficult precedent to set.
Any other comments or discussion points?
Other than that, just piggyback that, the precedent that was given to us tonight was an area that's outside of the protected area. So even though they're right there together, there's a defining line, and I agree. We set precedent potentially moving forward.
Okay.
On the other hand, on that though, I do understand the situation where you have a property owner, if you will, who now controls the entirety of a unitized block bounded by street. The viability of a obsolete alley, that has limited or almost non-existent through alley connection, does beg the question. Once upon a time, that connection may have existed, but it doesn't anymore. So the question being, in its obsolescence, should it be retained in the first place?
I have stated this before in prior cases where we had alley vacating before us, and I think it's very clear in the excerpt that's in the record on this case that our charge is not just to consider the protection of one component, but an entire fabric. And once we start letting pieces and parts go away from the fabric, then the fabric falls apart. So that one side of the coin is that we allow, and it's piggybacking on our colleagues' comments made already, that
That's why
we
we're
don't
having the
protect it.
conversation now.
Yep.
We've already lost a fragment of, so now, okay, we've already lost a piece of it, so it's okay to lose another piece of it.
Right. And then there's a cascade effect each block, because wait, look, this one went, we can lose this one. I would argue that maybe the north-south component is not necessarily a viable vein of usage for the site, but the east-west may certainly be. There's still the residential components to the east that are serviced, and I think there are many ways that you could develop a site such as this. So, and I understand market factors. We can't go into that here, but I think from a historical precedent, I think, we have a charge, and we need to serve that charge.
I think in part what you've just mentioned does bear the fact, perhaps the idea of vacating an alley, even though the properties are contiguous now, is a bit premature, and actually would really depend more upon this internal circulation and its impact with a proposed development, which we don't have at this point in time. I think the two of them should go hand in hand.
I agree. I mean, there are plenty of examples where projects have used existing alleyways and internal alleyways to their site with major development, towers. So to say that it's impossible to move forward with a solution with this alley in place is, you know, obviously, as I said before, we can't look at the market metrics right now because that's not before us and that's not our purview in this particular component of the property. But I think there are other solutions. Anyway, any other comments or a motion? Reminder, I cannot make motions,
No,
so.
I've got it.
And if you are developing one in your mind, please make note of the recommended conditions from staff and the reference to the Secretary of Interior standards as well.
I move to recommend City Council deny ARC 21-450/BAC 21-09 for the property located at 1701 North Florida Avenue, requesting an alley vacating for the following reasons. That Chapter 17, Section 27-113 recommends sorry, I'm going to take that back. That the Secretary of Interior Standards, pages 76 through 80, recommends identifying, retaining, and preserving buildings, streetscapes, and landscape patterns that are important in defining the overall historic character of the district, which includes alleys. Altering these features are not recommended in a historic district.
We have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, the motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Moving to the next two agenda items. It was discussed internally with legal that the next two cases are interwoven. The agent acknowledges that he's going to present one presentation, and then at the end of the presentation, that we'll go ahead and discuss each one individually, and each case will have a separate motion attached to it. So the next two cases are ARC 21-552/REZ 21-111. This is for the address of 301 East Oak Avenue. This request is for a recommendation to rezone from RM24 to PD. And then the second case that's going to be attached is ARC 21-479. This is for the address of 1808 North Morgan Street. This is in front of you this evening for a certificate of appropriateness to relocate from 1808 Morgan to 301 East Oak Avenue. Having stated that, I have some reference material to assist you. So the site that we just looked at, this is the T alley, and this was the site that received the PD. So as part of moving forward with the master plan for this site that I expressed to the agent to have some information so you could digest that moving forward. This is the Sanborn map from 1929. The parcel in question for the rezoning is on the corner of Oak and Morgan. This is 301 East Oak Avenue. Currently, the overhead shows, the coverage of the canopies on site. I know that the agent has some information from the arborist that could not join us this evening since he's out of town, but he does have some information to share. Just looking back at the site, it has a sidewalk and it has this little curbing as you come into the site. There are some leftover approaches, aprons into the site. And there was some steps coming into the site where the fabric was that the Sanborn showed as well. Moving to the additional photos. This is the contributing structure that's on site currently. This is the only contributing structure within the block that was reviewed for the PD that received unfavorable recommendation. And this is the alley that we spoke about earlier. The subject site is here. The relocation is going to the east from a corner to a corner. Just a little different orientation that will be addressed. This is once again showing the overall vicinity within the local district of Tampa Heights. The red boundary line indicates the local district. It's on the southern fringe. The contributing structure making the site to the PD or the move to the PD. Just a couple of different illustrations showing the same point, and just to focus on the structure itself. This is the front elevation, which is the north elevation. This is the east elevation and the front elevation, showing how they're addressing the accessibility at this time. This is looking at the front elevation, which is the north and the western facade. And moving around to the rear. And some different accessibility issues to meet code. And this just shows the posting at the receiving site. So that concludes the photo presentation at this time. Mr. Madsen can address the board.
Good evening. My name is Harvey Schoenbrunn, and I am the owner of 1808 North Morgan, where the building is now, as well as 301 East Oak, where we would like to move the building to. I just wanted to introduce myself to you and to let you know that I am not an interloper. My history in this block, in this neighborhood, goes back 74 years when I was born at the old St. Joe's Hospital across the street. And then when I was a little boy, my office building, not this building, but my office building, which is at 1802 North Morgan, was my pediatrician's office, Dr. Philip Adler. And then 37 years ago, I bought this property. Felt like I came home, and I've been practicing law in this neighborhood, in this property at 1802 North Morgan for 37 years. I want to continue to practice law in this neighborhood. I don't want to leave it, and I would love to take this building, which we bought in 1984 and fixed up because it was terrible, and move it across the street to a much better site. It's a lot and a half, and renovate it completely to where it's beautiful and is hopefully an inspiration to the rest of the block for them to kind of fix up their buildings, and that's what we're going to try to accomplish to do. And now I would have my agent, Andrew Madsen, deliver the legal points of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Andrew Madsen. I'm the architect for the relocation and for the remodel of the building and also the master planning. My address is 1907 East 7th Avenue, just right down the street from the parcel. How do I get my presentation? PC? Oh no, I have it on the thumb drive.
Got a PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
I think it's okay.
They put it on the network or on the C drive.
Oh, wait, I think you already had it.
Okay.
So you're gonna, what you're gonna, yeah, PC,
PC.
and then what you're gonna do is, nope, see,
Oh,
this
sorry.
is your keyboard right here.
Thank you. Okay. Is it being displayed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is as Ron pointed out, this is the historic, or the contributing structure, I shouldn't say historic, it's the contributing structure that we're proposing to relocate. And I might go repeat some of the information that Ron had already said. So this is the existing, on my left is the existing Oak Avenue elevation, and on my right is the existing Morgan Street elevation. And the reason why I say it's existing, because when we relocate it, the building is positioned such that its corner is Oak and Morgan. And if we relocate it, we want to take that same kind of corner facade, but in order to address the same corner, Oak and Morgan, we kind of have to rotate the building 180 degrees to maintain that orientation. Because if we just slide it across the way, the side of the building will now be facing a street elevation, and we felt that was inappropriate for the move. And I'll go into details on that. Again, the existing side, the existing alley elevation, and the existing side elevation. That would be the side that was, so on your right, that would be the side that would now be facing Morgan if we kept the orientation the same. The relocation site is the Oak Avenue site. So an aerial, that's the current location, and as you can see, it's the only house left on the block. And so we're proposing to relocate it just directly across the street to Oak Avenue, to this site. The proposed development that was is not by us, so our group doesn't have any control of that existing development, but if the development does go through, this is the only structure that will be left in place, and we felt it would be a kind of a inappropriate scale for that location, for it to maintain on that location. Plus, as Harvey had mentioned, he wants to be maintained in the neighborhood. He wants to preserve the house, and so we feel it's the best if we relocate it, and that he could occupy that space as his personal law offices in the neighborhood. And so this is kind of the orientation. So we've taken the house. The only kind of exterior modifications we're going to do is like ADA improvements to it. So as you saw, we're taking the house in one direction. As we swing it over, we're going to rotate it 180 degrees. So part of the rezoning and the PD and the ARC application is the receiving site is a RM24. Which does not allow for law offices. So we're asking for the PD to allow for the client to occupy it as a law office, which the current facility is. So the 1808 Morgan Street address is a PD and it is approved and is actually used as a law office. So as we relocate the building, we want to bring that same use over to the new facility, or to the new address. We tried multiple different orientations of the building to try to preserve it, but part of this, the waivers is we have parking restrictions. There's trees and the way it has to swing into it. We're trying to preserve trees on the site, so this actually works well with the preservation, and the setbacks kind of align with the existing setbacks of the neighborhood. The arborist, which unfortunately he was not able to attend. These are the packets he wished to bring out. I don't know if I could. I have one. And so so part of the waiver in the rezoning application is there is a oak tree. There's 2 grand oak trees that we're removing. One is deemed hazardous, and his recommendation is it must be removed. And those are the trees. It's the 33-inch tree on the south of the receiving site. There is a 36-inch tree that would be too close in proximity to the foundations of the building, and its rating is borderline on a C8, and that he doesn't think the tree would survive the construction of it. And we're preserving as many trees on the site as possible. And these are just some of the variations we've tried, just to give perspective on how we came up with the orientation and the pitfalls or the problems with the orientation. So this was an example, one of the first ones where we took the orientation of the building and we just slid the building over. And as you could clearly see, the corner, the intersection of Oak and Morgan, the building is not facing it anymore. So the historic corner facade is now is not how it would be. So we were talking about we would have to build a porch and that, you know, to wrap around to make a new orientation, and it just didn't seem to fit. With that orientation, it really limits our parking. We'd have to use the alley, and we just didn't get enough parking spaces. So we tried a couple of variations, moving the buildings forward, still not getting enough site for parking. And again, the biggest problem with it is the orientation, is that the historic corner facade is just not facing the corner, the corner of North Oak Avenue and Morgan Street. This was one where we pushed it forward, and we weren't going to utilize the alley, but in order to do such, we had to use angled parking, and you end up with a wash of the same number of parking spaces. These are the existing building elevations of the existing site. So with the references to way it currently is orientation. So, you know, the Oak Avenue elevation will now be a different elevation. So these are the proposed final elevations on it. So I'm showing, I understand from the staff reports that the improvements to the site will have to be done under a separate ARC. But just so you know, we're proposing an elevator, an ADA ramp, and redo the stairs for egress purposes. These are the renderings that we've done, and we've included the new development, which has already been approved. So it's the Victorian townhomes that are on the back side of the alley. Those are the on 7th Avenue, which are 4-story townhomes. And so our site, 301 Oak, we're trying to maintain the historic structure of it. So this would be the new, the Oak Avenue elevation, which was the current Morgan Avenue elevation. This is the Morgan Street. Oh, no, sorry, that's Oak Avenue. That's the corner intersection of it. This is along Oak Avenue, looking at the elevator, proposed ADA ramp. So part of it was the original ADA access to it was in the front on the porch. We didn't feel like that was appropriate, and so we're trying to redesign it so that it's not, it's accessible, but not the first thing you see. And then the proposed interior of the parking of it. So that's again the townhouses to the south on 7th Avenue, and our proposed redevelopment of the site. And that's just the interior of where the ADA ramp is. We're proposing to keep all the materials the same. So the brick where we had vertical elements, such as the fireplaces, that's what and paints. But again, that's a separate ARC. So, and that's it.
So at this time, I'd ask the agent if that concludes your joint presentation for the recommendation for the rezoning and.
Yes. So so the rezoning is just because they work together. So I just want to reiterate, the relocation of the house is one, but the rezoning, they work together. So you have to have both at the same time. And I even think in the report, in the rezoning report, that it says the relocation must come first before the ARC, or for the rezoning application.
So you've addressed every point that you needed to address for both?
Yeah. You want me? I could go through each waiver if you want to go through the waiver applications for the REZ, but I mean they're very.
Yes.
Yeah.
Typically,
okay.
we expect that to be, yeah.
No problem. So there's 5 waivers for the application.
Put the site plan up?
For the site plan,
Yeah,
yes.
put the site plan.
Okay. So the first waiver is to reduce the buffer along the east property line from 15 feet with a 6-foot CMU wall to 10 feet with a 6-foot opaque fence. So that is this property line right here. Just because of the orientation, the size of the building, and when we rotate it, it only leaves us with enough room for the 10-foot buffer. The reason for the CMU to the 6-foot opaque fence is more of the historic preservation. The neighborhood doesn't want a CMU wall. They'd rather have an opaque, like wood fence, which is there, currently there. The second waiver is to reduce the vehicle use buffer area from 8 foot to 4 feet. Now that's specifically along the alley. So we're not vacating the alley. We're using the alley for the access. And we're asking for a reduction from a vehicle use from 8 foot to 4 foot off of the alley portion. And just in the codes, alleys had the same type of vehicle use as a right-of-way. So we're just asking for a reduction from 8 to 4 feet to allow for the parking, because parking is a big consideration. And then we're going to pay for the tree fund for mitigations of trees that can't be planted on site. We're requesting a reduction of parking from 17 spaces to 15 spaces. And again, so everything we're doing is trying to maximize that reduction. So we're only asking for a 12% reduction, and based on the use, the lawyer's use, which he currently is in the neighborhood, the parking is more than sufficient for his actual demand. So there shouldn't be any parking issues in the neighborhood because of the reduction. And then the removal of one non-hazardous grand oak tree. That's what's rated as C8. That's this tree right here. If you can see on my cursor, that's right by on the east property line on it. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Andrew. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. So to focus on the next agenda item, which is ARC 21-552/REZ 21-111. Once again, this is for the address of 301 East Oak Avenue. The request in front of you this evening is for rezoning from RM24 to PD. The waivers were addressed. Once again, we go to the code section 27-113 with your duties and powers with regards to the application for rezoning, land use change, use classifications, or comprehensive plan amendments to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historic integrity and appearance. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights Code of Ordinance, Tampa Code of Ordinances in accordance with Chapter 27-113 A2J. There were conditions attached to this that if this is to move forward, that the relocation of 1808 North Morgan Street must be approved by the ARC as well. There were some amenities and footprint changes to the site that was shown. Those amenities and vertical accessibilities will come at a later date through an additional certificate of appropriateness. He did not indicate any signage with the PDs. If there's any site signage, it should be indicated on the site. If it's attached to the building, obviously it's not required at this point. And I'd like for him to go through the setbacks and just to show the consistency along the blocks, if any, and or the respect that he's giving the structure at its current location to how he's relocating it. There is a letter of support attached to this request as well, and this is from the Tampa Heights Civic Association. I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. All right, we will open this up to public comment. If there's anyone who would like to come forward and speak either for or against this case, please do so. And if you haven't been sworn in, please let us know.
And again, Kamaria Pettis-Malco from the City Attorney's Office. Madam Chair, we're only addressing at this time the ARC 21-552, the rezoning the recommendation rezoning from RM24 to PD.
If that's what we're doing, yeah, we can separate the public comment if that's what we
Right.
need to do. Okay. Yes.
I'm not quite sure if my comments are specific to one or the other or to both. My name's Rochelle Gross, 1602 East 3rd Avenue, Tampa, 33605. I own two historic commercial properties a block away from this location, and I'm happy to see that Mr. Schonbrun is willing to move, fully renovate, and improve this historic house. Under the circumstances, I understand why he wants to change the orientation to face Morgan, and I'm fine with that decision. In fact, I support it. A large section of the wraparound porch would face Oak Avenue, which keeps that corner appeal. Also, there are numerous structures that face Morgan north and south, and of the adjacent 15 townhomes approved just last year, 7 don't face any street at all. Regarding the parking, I also am for this change so that he can have the parking spaces that he needs. Considering the development in this area, like the 15 townhomes with no driveways and only 2 visitor spots, I think he's going to need all the spaces that he can get. And I'm for his rezoning as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward? Seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and move on to the commissioner's questioning or questions for the applicant or staff. Anyone have any questions for the applicant or staff? This is in regards to the zoning, rezoning only at this time.
I have a question. This is in regards to Grand Oak number 2. You're requesting a variance to reduce your required parking from 17 spaces to 15 spaces. And it seems as though you were losing 1 space because of that oak.
Okay, so yeah, that is we had talked to the Civic Association, and they wanted to preserve the tree as well, and we were willing to actually preserve the tree, and that was one of our options, and I wish the arborist was here to help me on this one, but he actually said, no, it's not, because it's hazardous. His recommendation is to remove it. So it's a C8, yeah, so C9 is preservation, C8 is deemed hazardous, so he wanted it removed, because it was...
I think we're talking about different trees.
Which, you're talking about this one right here.
The number 2, it is tree number 2 on the south property line.
Yeah, that's the...
That says that it's a C9 in good shape with low failure potential.
See, that's what I would have to go, I'm willing to save that tree, but that was not consistent with what he had instructed us, and that's why it was being removed, because I'm happy to save the tree and reduce the parking, because the required parking that, obviously the required parking is 17 parking spaces. That's not what the client actually needs for it, but that's just the city guidelines on it. And so when we had spoken with the arborist, he was not, yeah, see, that's sorry, number 2, if you look at the report, is the hazardous laurel oak in fair condition. And so I might be reading it wrong, but that is on his page, on his second page of it. There's the number of grand trees. There's a tree number 14, non-hazardous, and tree number 2, 33-inch hazardous. And that's why he's recommended to remove it.
Let's see.
I think
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Can you point to the trees on the site plan to help better explain where they are, where 14 is and where number 2 is?
Yeah, so let me actually, I will get the arborist report here.
I was going to say, if you can, just put the report on the Elmo if you have a printout, and just point it out in the report.
Yeah, I will.
Then you can explain.
This is it, and then,
You can also expand it from here 150%, but I could switch it over if you want to use
oh
it.
no, I'd rather just point on this. Let me just
Move it down. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this tree is the tree brand number 2. That's the question. And you look on page number 2 of that tree is the 33-inch hazardous oak. He calls it a fair condition, but it's a hazardous rating of C9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's, I mean, if we could preserve the tree, I mean, if it was in condition, and I mean, that was a specific question we actually had with the arborist on it. Is like, because when we talked to the Civic Association, they were asking us to preserve as many trees as possible, and we're willing to preserve it. But when we directly asked that to the arborist, his recommendation was that it's a hazardous tree and should be removed.
So to clarify, the tree number 14 is the one that is deemed non-hazardous and could be safe.
It could be safe, yeah, and that's the one that's the part of the waiver, so that is in the waiver. When we asked about that, it's just that in his report, he was saying that tree, it was that because of the foundations and the close proximity of it, he didn't think the long-term longevity of the tree would be sustainable. And again, you know, it's just based on the shape of the tree. He was okay with its removal as long as we're going to repay into the tree fund. So that was part of the tree fund. You know, we prefer to save as many trees as possible, but relocating and then destroying it just didn't seem like a good idea.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. I understand the difference.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm sorry about the confusion. So.
I have a follow-up question. Can you show us the path of relocation of the structure onto the site and how it gets actually moved onto the site?
Yes. Oops. So, let me go.
Before you answer that, I'm sorry. This is per discussions, I assume, with a reputable relocation firm?
Yes, we have a relocation contractor that has done this before, and we've been in complete discussion about how to remove it, or how to move the structure, how to rebuild the foundations, and how much can we lift the structure up. We've been also in communication with TECO because there's overhead transmission lines that are above us. And so we've even contacted a measuring company to actually perfectly laser measured the foundation of the existing house, the fireplaces, so that when we relocate the new structure over, it would be the exact same foundation, had the wires measured so that we know that when we lift up the house, we're not going to hit the transmission lines. There are other local distribution lines, but we're in talks with TECO to relocate those underground so that then the house could be relocated smoothly on it. So part of this is it's going to be basically picked up or put on rails, and then as they slide the house over, they're going to rotate the house and then drop it into its position across the street. And so, you know, part of this, which I didn't mention, was we're actually going to be adding a basement to the site for the use of the client for his file storage. We've done borings before the rainy season, so we had 4 20-foot borings and then, or no, 4 10-foot borings and a 20-foot boring around the site. And after the rainy season, we measured it, and our finished floor or our water table is still 10 feet below grade, if not greater. So he didn't detect the water table, so a basement is completely feasible for this. So when we build the house, We're going to build it. We're going to put a 10-inch cast-in-place concrete wall, which then the foundations will sit on. And again, we went and measured we had the laser measurements of the foundations. Oops.
So, Mr. Mattson, I'm so sorry. Can we just go to the question at hand, which is the movement of the house from one site to the other?
Yeah.
Because this is probably more appropriate to the second part of the request tonight.
Okay.
Just because
that's fine.
I'm just trying to get an answer to my original question.
Yeah, no, I apologize. So basically, it's going to be on rails, and it's just going to...
Can you indicate with your fingers over either this image or the site plan? Actually, the site plan would be better with the trees that are on there, because it was a follow-up to the tree discussion.
So these trees along the right-of-way on Oak Avenue we're preserving, and then the tree and the right-of-way on Morgan Street we're preserving. So if we went straight across with the house, we'd hit that. So what's good is that we're actually going to rotate the house, and it's going to slide into that and through that area, and then be dropped into place on that foundation over there. So by rotating it, which again was more about orientation, not on practicality of the move, but it just worked out that it now allows us to slide the house in through that opening to get into the site.
Okay. That's it for me on the zoning in terms of questions. Any other questions regarding the rezoning request?
Can staff tell us what the zonings are of the abutting properties?
Yeah, I could tell you that. So in the do you want around the perimeter, just with the abutting? Because I've listed on my site plan.
I'm actually more concerned with the block you're moving to.
Yep. So the block that we're moving to, Site K, which is those are the townhouses, that's a PD. Site G is an RM24 zoning, and then F is also, I believe, an RM24. Those are the two adjacent parcels. Across the street on Oak, B and C those two are actually commercial properties, CN zonings. So we'll be in line with a commercial. So B, C, and D are actually office PDs. So they'll match, at least when we move, our zoning will match the street across the way, or just across Oak Avenue.
Do you have any plans for signage on the site?
There was a small monument sign that was part of the thing, and that's about the same scale of what we would be proposing. I'll go back and show you the. There it is. So that's the existing signage, and I don't think we're going to have anything larger than that for the signage.
But where on the site would it be?
It would be actually across the way on Morgan, because that's the front entrance to the.
Can you indicate on your site plan?
Yep. It would be right here. And it's exactly the opposite side on Morgan currently.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff regarding the rezoning request? one more question in regards to the tree replacement, paying into the fund. Were any options looked at for actually adding in trees
Oh.
to the landscape?
Yeah, Ricky has done a landscape plan for us, and he's planted, he's proposing we proposed some trees where we could plant the trees that they would actually be sustained. But I don't have the actual plan, but we are basically going to be planting new landscape on there. It was just not too far for us to.
Including trees that
Yeah.
will have canopy?
Yeah, that we
on it.
can plant, yeah, because obviously, part of the application for permitting is we're gonna need to provide per the chapter 27, the landscape, for the landscaping, so we'll plant as many trees as we could possibly plant on
Okay,
as part of the land development code.
okay. That's it for my questions. Anyone else? No? All right, well, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if there's anything you'd like to add to the record
I mean, for the
consideration.
sorry.
For rezoning
For
only.
rezoning, I would just like to just mention that, as, like I said, in the, asking about what the uses are, the direct neighbors across the street are the same type, the same office use zoning as we're requesting. And also the site, the house is currently in a law office, is currently a PD, and we're just asking for that same zoning to be granted for this current site when we relocate it.
Right, thank you. Go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case. Any comments, questions, considerations?
And the variations, excuse me,
We've closed the
way-
hearing.
No, I have a question about making a motion. We handle the waivers requested as well?
Maria Pettis Smackle from the City Attorney's Office, that's what he's asking, that's in the application itself.
Oh, okay, so we don't need to
No,
list
that's
those
already
again.
in the application.
Okay. Move to recommend City Council approve ARC 21-552 rezoning 21-111 for the property located at 301 East Oak Avenue for the proposed rezoning from RM24 to PD for the reasons that it reinforces, it is consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances in accordance with Chapter 27-113 and reinforces the historic character of the neighborhood.
I would like to amend that by asking that we consider conditions.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
I just mean
And
as recommended by staff, so you can amend your motion, but we
Okay.
also talked about a few things.
All right, and what were those things? Yes, and so that this motion should carry the following conditions. That relocation of the contributing structure at 1808 North Morgan Street must first be approved by the ARC, and that signage will be indicated on the plan, and that any signage will be indicated on the plan as we move forward.
I accept those conditions.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. And then we'll move on to the ARC 21-479. We'll go ahead and open public comment for the relocation of the contributing structure from the southwest corner of Morgan Street and Oak Avenue to the southeast corner of Morgan Street and Oak Avenue. Is there anyone either for or against that would like to come up and speak that has And again, please state your name and your address.
Rochelle Gross, 1602 East 3rd Avenue, Tampa, 33605. I am for moving the house and relocating it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to come forward? Not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and move on to commissioners asking questions of either the agent or the staff in regards to the relocation of the contributing structure. So why don't we start with the presentation you had started on the foundation, how it will set, and then and we'll go from there.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, you know, I just was reiterating that, you know, we've taken a lot of care and time into the relocation to make sure that when we do move it, it is actually feasible to relocate in such a way and preserve it, because, you know, the key is not just the relocation, it's the preservation of the building. Our client is really adamant about preserving the structure and giving it a use for the foreseeable future. So it's not just for him, it's also for his law firm that he wants to pass down to his family and keep this operational. So what we've taken, like I said, is in this, we've had it laser measured, and you can see these are the lines that, those are like cable, low voltage, and then there are some distribution lines. That's the TECO lines that we are going to have to relocate. We're in the process of negotiation with TECO to get a cost to basically move it underground from pole to pole. Not that complicated. That line is the line of the transmission line.
Can you zoom out just a little bit? We can't see all of that.
Okay, sorry. Oh. Over here. The zoom. Okay. 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 Sorry. Okay. So that top line up on the very top, that's actually just part of the page. This line is the bottom line. So there's 3 phases of power that come across. The bottom line is the bottom phase. In discussion, we had the laser measurers measured the highest point, which is the fireplaces on the house. So that's why those are represented like that. The house is only going to get lifted up like a foot to 18 inches. There are some curbs. There's some on the site too. On the receiving site, there's the granite curbs. There's a sidewalk, and there's actually a like 8-inch retaining wall, a low 8-inch retaining wall. So we just kind of have to lift that house up just enough to get it over to the site. And actually, part of it too is it shouldn't be that complicated because it's sitting 2'8" above grade right now, and when we land it, it's going to be sitting 3'4" above grade, so about 8 inches of difference from the original. So the character of the house when we relocate it will be almost the same. It's from a 2'8" foundation to a 3'4" foundation. And again, we went through and had the so had them measure, and I'm going to rotate it. So this is the stair foundation. This piece is the porch support, and the house are sitting on these piers. The indication of the red is where the laser couldn't actually find. So those are actually just based on, you know, surrounding footers where they think it is. When we get the house up, we'll actually know exactly where it is to relocate it. And again, the basement will follow this rectangle, and that's where the house will then sit on top of that particular foundation. And we'll rebuild the foundation brick to match the brick where it was brick. And then the siding in the house we're going to restore. There's some, again, that's a separate ARC. There's a lot of water damage and termite damage that we have to repair for it.
So could you go through the If you could go through the points under the burden of proof that you attached to the material that we have in front of us.
Yeah, so there's alternatives to demolition, relocation, such as planned development. So part of this is obviously, we're not trying to demo it, but we are no longer going to be in control of the existing site. So once the sale goes through, that parcel will be owned by somebody else. And so we're trying to preserve it. This way, we know it's being preserved. So, and preserve in the way that a neighborhood resident who's been in the neighborhood for, I have no idea, more than 30 years, because to preserve it and keep the structure as in an appropriate scale. So we're not going to change it dramatically. We're just going to bring ADA improvements to it. But that's so part of it is the site that it's coming from will be lost out of our control, and so we know what we're going to do with it, which is to preserve it and relocate it. And that's basically A and B. So C is it appropriate where it currently sits, there is no contributing structures. There's no houses left. It's either vacant parcels or office buildings. There's an engineering firm. His current offices are there. Where we're relocating it is actually residential scale neighborhood, and where it's going to maintain that residential neighborhood, and it will actually infill that piece of site. So there's two houses adjacent to it, and so we'll just fill in that corner with an appropriate house. Let's see, whether the applicant has the we can definitely, whether the applicant has the ability to build or propose new construction within a reasonable time period if it is approved. And obviously, relocation, we have a contract under place for the relocation. So the second this gets approved, the house, we're going to do the next step of actually start relocating, submitting documents to the city for permitting for the relocation of the house. Whether demolition is justified as we're not trying to demo it, so it's not. Contributing structure makes its presence sitting. So that again, the existing where it is, we're not under control. We will not control that site. We control the site where it's being relocated to. Whether there are definite plans for the site to be vacated, again, that is a development. There are definite plans. Whether it's going to be approved as the current design, which had a disfavorable approving, it's still going to be sold eventually at some point in time, and so, or redeveloped, because it is like the last full block piece of land that one person controls now. So us relocating it, we are actually guaranteeing the preservation of that structure, and we'll know what it's going to be. So whether it can be moved without significant damage to its physical integrity, we have a building relocation specialist, and basically he's guaranteed we're moving it in one piece. We're working with another, our civil engineer is working on another relocation where they're actually proposed to quarter the house. We're not doing that. We're proposing to basically lift up the house, move it in one piece. The only pieces that wouldn't need to be reconstructed, obviously, are the foundations, because it's got to get new foundations. We have to rebuild some stairs, because again, we're going from 2'8" to 3'4". Again, but that's also, we'll bring it up to current codes for that. And the compatibility of the building or structure to the proposed site and adjacent properties, that's exactly what we're trying to preserve. We're trying to preserve the adjacent neighborhood or the adjacent houses as houses. So scale is very important to us.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
May I just confirm that this project will come back for a certificate of appropriateness after it's approved to move? Is that correct?
That is correct. To make this code compliant, there's some amenities that have to be attached to the building as far as vertical accessibility and handicap approach from the parking lot into the building and circulation within the building. So there's different aspects that it will come back.
And will the site improvements be a part of that?
That's correct. At this time, we're just moving it. You have a recommendation for the PD, and this is the second phase of that. So the hardscape and the landscape will come back to the board as well.
Thank you.
Will the building be proposed to be moved if there is no development on the block?
Yes, our goal is to move the building regardless of the development, and that's partly because he wants to occupy it, so he's selling the land that is being sold. One of the parcels that is being sold is his current law office. So he putting his law office on 301 East Oak Avenue guarantees that he will stay in the neighborhood, the house will stay in the neighborhood, and that's what he wants to occupy as his place of business. So regardless of the development that happens, the house is going to get, or our goal is to get that house to be relocated so he could occupy it and stay in the neighborhood.
Any other questions? All right, well, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if there's anything else you'd like to add to the record.
No, other than just reiterating the fact that we're dedicated to move this house over and to preserve the house. That's the primary goal, is to preserve it, because the block it sits on has no contributing structures, no residential development, and we're just unsure of what the future is of that site. By moving it, we guarantee the future of this structure and the neighborhood for years to come. So.
Thank you, sir. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we will discuss the case.
I believe that this proposal for relocation is perhaps a best condition for the long-term preservation of this contributing structure towards Tampa Heights. It's not like we're moving it across the world or across the street. On a more appropriately scaled domestic block, even to the point where it's more appropriately scaled in terms of its low-density commercial uses, in terms of its neighbors. The thought of leaving this building where it is right now, I think, leaves it in great jeopardy.
Any thoughts, comments?
I'm torn. Because my mindset is the building, for anything to happen to the building where it currently sits, would have to come in front of this board, and it would have to be approved or recommended and eventually approved to either be moved, torn down, or something to happen to it, unless it was vacated altogether and someone just let it go into a state of deterioration. Personally feel like there's a lot of hoops that are being jumped for this block, and that's the only reason it seems this house is being moved.
The sale of the property is going to happen regardless of development on the adjacent block, and we are trying to preserve the historic fabric of the block, so I do think that moving the house is probably our strongest course of action to preserve what is there.
I am always saddened when I go down West Grand Central Avenue in the area of the Falk Theater, behind the Falk Theater at UT, where there's this very substantial apartment building and one little Victorian house, which is actually quite large, but it looks tiny. It looks like the Stuart Little house. That was a holdout and would not sell to the acquisition there. I don't see that that's a good outcome.
Which is exactly why I said I'm torn.
Well, I'm torn as you are, but I do also agree with Commissioner Sutton's remark that moving it over and letting it sit comfortably with neighbors that are more like itself, rather than all alone and forlorn in that awful block. I too am torn because, you know, we're talking about saving a fabric as it exists. And why do we have to play these gymnastics sometimes?
Well, it makes you just feel handcuffed up here.
Right.
Now, I commend the current owner for
Absolutely.
going to this extent to save this property. To those guys, I just, we're jumping a lot of hoops.
But he gets basement out of the deal.
We don't have a lot of those in Tampa.
Yeah, I won't comment.
That's why people come to the Heights, though. Anyone want to entertain a motion? Or do we need to talk about anything?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness to relocate for ARC 21-479 for the property located at 1808 North Morgan Street, in as much as the agent has satisfied the requirements of Chapter 27, Section 27-116F of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor of the motion, please state aye and indicate by raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes by unanimous vote. Congratulations. Do we need to take a break, or are we good to go?
It's already on.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break.
On your everyday scene. But since I've been my shame, you've been feeling mean and confused. Got you chained to your earphones. You just a white boy lost in the blues. I'm gonna try to bend them for you now. I got my home on the hillside, never feel the cold. Got my loving one on and a blues in my soul. Say I heard you cooking. I've been really mean and confused. Well, it's got me chained to my headphones. Why boy lost in the blues? Yeah, I can see you lost in the blues. Go ahead and do your thing, baby. Yes, yes. It's got you chained to your earphone. You're just a white boy lost in not you chain to your earphone? You're just a white boy lost in the blues.
What this hell going on around town? The people said we're gonna put the kid down. Oh no, oh look at what you did. You can call it what you want. I call it messing with the kid. You know the kid's no child, and I don't play. I search what I mean. And I mean what I say. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, look at what you do. You can call it what you wanna. I call it messing with the kid.
Historic Preservation. Our next agenda item is ARC 21-408. This is for the address of 409 East Oak Avenue. This is in the Tampa Heights Historic District. Currently, it's a vacant parcel. Their underlying zoning is a PD, or it's in process, and the request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction, 9 townhomes with site improvements. If you look on your staff report on page 3, gives you some previous action. On November 3rd, 2021, the ARC recommended approval to rezone from CN to PD with considerations, and I'll address that consideration in a minute. And then it went to City Council on November 18th for first reading, and it was approved with the condition that was attached moving forward from this board, which is that they have a 5-foot build-to line that they have the ability to provide adjustments forward or backwards to make for a better project for the certificate of appropriateness, what we're looking at this evening. So briefly, just going through the photo presentation, starting with the 1929 Sanborn map. Oak Avenue is to the north. Property in question is highlighted in the green parcel. You see a little different fabric here. You see some residential or some frame construction that surrounds the subject site. And then you see a very important one-story brick structure that anchors the corner that's still present today. There is an alley that runs to the east in 1929, and you have Jefferson to the west. Looking from above, a current aerial showing the area in question once again. You see the trees, which were part of the PD discussion and approval moving forward. Once again, you have Oak to the north, you have Jefferson to the west, and you have Central Avenue to the east. And you see the interstate as a reference point. This is just looking back at the site from Oak Avenue. Just different perspectives looking from Oak back into the site. This is looking from Oak to the south. You see some of the period materials with the granite curbing. You see the parkway and then the linear sidewalk. This is that period structure that I spoke about. It's a commercial structure that is in very good shape, that anchors the corner with a zero lot line. This is just a street perspective looking down Oak to the east towards the interstate. You see, the expanse in the street. You see the granite curbing, the parkway, and the sidewalks as it frames the street. And then looking to the west, you have a little bit of fabric as you go down towards the last project that we just looked about. So you see some historic fabric. This is directly across the street. And just a condition of the alleys to conclude the presentation. At this time, Mr. Wolf will address, or Josh will address the commission at this time. Thank you.
Good evening, Josh Nicholson, 3715 East 7th Avenue. I'm with Wolf Partners, the builder, developer. My business partner, Adam Wolf's also architect and developer on this project. This is our oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Technology. Just a quick introduction to the rest of the team. I have, Adam is with me tonight. We do have a land use attorney and a certified arborist that have helped us to get to this point. Stephanie Farrell with Farrell Redevelopment is here with us. She's our historic preservation consultant and has provided a lot of help in navigating this whole process. Chris Weddle is also not here, but he's our civil on the project. This is the proposed site plan. Just to sort of reiterate what Ron said. You guys had approved or recommended the rezoning of this property last month, and we went before the City Council on the 18th of November and received unanimous approval for the rezoning for them. Part of that, those conditions was the 5-foot build to line, which Adam's going to address in his presentation. I did want to take you guys through, I will back up and say, we also took the recommendations that you all provided in our last hearing, as well as meeting again with the Tampa Heights Civic Association, and modified some of our plans to address those concerns. And I do also, and I think you have the letter with you in your packet tonight, but I can also submit it as evidence as well. We do have a recommendation letter from the Tampa Heights Civic Association here with us tonight for this design that we've modified. So this is the proposed site plan. Again, it's 9 units. One thing that we are doing with this site is there are existing unimproved alleys. So we're actually restoring the fabric of the traditional neighborhood. It will be constructed in a way that will meet current design standards for the transportation. But this allowed us, the alleys as they exist allow us not to make any curb cuts. And so we can maintain that integrity of the streetscape, not address any of the curbing, the existing historic granite curbing. The curb cuts that's there now will remain. And so again, the alley, the curbing is going to remain consistent. I'm going through, excuse me, there's about 8 or 9 conditions you'll see in the staff report. I'm sort of following through with that. I'll address the first 3, and then Adam will pick up the rest. So the granite curbing will remain. We won't be touching that as part of our developments in good condition. Examples of the hardscape. Adam's going to address the courtyard that's in the middle of the 2 buildings, which is a motor court, and explain that further. I think I've addressed the alley. The rest of the hardscape will be concrete, so all the sidewalks and stoops and the small driveways between the alley and the adjoining structure will be broom finished concrete, very specific to the period. Landscaping, we are planting 6 magnolia trees along the streetscape along Oak, so we'll provide the shade and canopy for the street. And then we have some type 2 ornamental trees that provide the buffers between us and the commercial uses to the east and the west. Fencing, we do not feel it's appropriate to provide fencing in this location. We think that distracts from the historic character of the neighborhood, and we don't want to provide, restricted, circulation between our building and the rest of the neighborhood. So The fencing is not part of what we're proposing here. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam to go through the building.
Adam Wolf, 3715 East 7th Avenue. I have not been sworn in. I do. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time this evening. I'd like to run through and provide a refresher and kind of take and distill what our interpretation of the comments were from our previous recommendation for rezoning. I know we touched on a few things that are relevant to the certificate of appropriateness approval. Here we have the previous elevation along Oak. One of the issues were the setbacks at the porch level specifically, and also on this rendering, which I think is even further back, but we incorporated more front porches into the Oak elevation. We've also stepped back the entry facade and building envelope at both the first level, second level. And we've also modified the roof line so that it steps down a little bit more softly towards the rest of the neighborhood. And so here you can see that current elevation as it's been adjusted. We've incorporated a secondary sloped roof here at between the second and third levels to better reference and be in keeping with the 2- and 3-story structures that are adjacent along Oak and in the surrounding neighborhood. You can see here we've got 3 porches. Previously we were proposing 2, and we thought that a lot of the neighborhood association and adjacent property owners were really interested in that pedestrian level engagement, so we tried to modify our unit splits so that we can accommodate more porch area. And as Ron mentioned, here we have our current setback diagram. Proposed on the front is 5 feet. On the east is 7 feet. To the west is 11 feet. To the south is 8 feet. And trying to accommodate and meet the recommendations of your staff. Previously, we've gone ahead and tried to reduce these front setbacks or increase these front setbacks as much as possible, in hoping that it meets the character of the intent of the previous discussions we've had in terms of softening that relationship from the building to the pedestrian level. We also identified a few setback precedents that we'd like to point out here, all of which are contributing structures. This is just 2 blocks to the north, directly across from Lee's Grocery, which is a commercial 0 lot line building and has a multifamily directly adjacent to it. So we actually drew some inspiration from the porches here and created this 2-tiered column aesthetic similar to they have. A 6-foot setback on this bottom column, 2'4" up to the stoop, and they have a 7'6" deep front porch or stoop with a 10'5" envelope setback. We also have this, looks like a 8-unit multifamily project. It's got a 5-foot setback, apologies for the handwriting, with a 10-foot stoop. And then this, which I believe is not going to be with us any longer, but it is contributing. This has a 3'4" setback to the building envelope, and I wasn't able to measure this opening here at the entrance, but we think that these are all relevant towards our project as they are multifamily buildings and they also are all contributing. And while there is no other setback or adjacent properties or buildings on our immediate block to be able to reference aside from the 0 lot line commercial building, we thought it was appropriate to establish some sort of a guideline on how we establish our setbacks in relation to the existing historic fabric. So here we can see on the top diagram we have the previous design. The porches are in yellow with the stoops in orange, and then we have the enclosure outline in red here. After meeting with staff and neighbors, we think that adding porches and increasing this setback along Oak was really important. So we modified our unit cadence in order to accommodate more porches and more extensive porches as well. So if we zoom in on the two different unit types that are here along Oak, the previous again at the top, current at the bottom, it was previously a 6'2" setback from the property line to the entrance and to the building envelope. Also, we had two total porches of 85 square feet each, which is 170 total square feet of porch area. With the current design, we have increased that setback to almost 8 feet at the entry and 7'4" at the envelope here. And then with those three porches, total with increasing that setback allowed for the porch size to increase to 107 square feet. And when we have three, that's 321 square feet of total porch area along Oak, which is an 88% increase compared to our previous submission. And here we have a rendering of what those porches are going to look like. I think that this illustrates that pedestrian engagement that we're trying to achieve. Again, some more diagrams on those two types of entries. We have porches and non-porches. Where there would be a porch, we have a planter instead to allow for different unit types and also a little bit more green space along Oak. Here's that second type. And here we can go back to see the different efforts that were made to reduce that or increase that setback at the second level and the first level, and then cap it with this sloped roof. And again, this top roof was kind of created a mansard type roof, but we've increased the pitch of that to a 12-12 so that from the elevation view, you can actually understand that it is a sloped roof, and it also brings down that soffit line a little bit more and helps it relate to the adjacent buildings. Let's see the modified elevations. So if we look at the wall sections at the two different entrance conditions that we looked at in those axonometric drawings, we have this red line outlining what the previous setback and building envelope or line of enclosure was at our previous recommendation hearing. And then you can see the section beyond it or underneath it is what we're proposing now. And we think that this extra space here at both the first and second level not only allows for a little bit softer of a meeting with the pedestrian level, but it also provides for better facade undulation across the elevation in a way that breaks up the mass even further than we had previously. And we've done that across all elevations, including the rear where we didn't have that slightly pitched roof was never going to be visible from the pedestrian level. So we think that this more steeply sloped mansard type roof is more appropriate. And now I'd like to run through the material selections. We think that this is kind of a contemporary adaptation of Craftsman style with a little bit of prairie inspiration, specifically at the ground floor. And we think that a kind of earth-toned facade and materiality along with the brick and two-tone brick is going to be appropriate. And we also have bronze metal accents and wood entry doors and wood garage doors. So here we have a gray shingled roof for all of the sloped roofs. And that's a GAF product, designer laminated architectural series. And for the siding, we're going for the Aspire fiber cement siding by Hardie. And this is that square channel siding, which gives really nice reveals, gives some depth along that profile as you look at it from the elevation. And then at the accented areas, or the bay windows, we are looking at the Hardie fiber cement reveal panel with surround trim. And this really gives, we think it gives the profile of that surround trim and the reveal gives it a nice depth and a lot of detail within the actual facade to have those profile relationships between the siding and the bay windows. roof soffits, we're proposing a beaded porch panel at the upper roofs, and then at the, I'll get to the entry soffit in a bit. And here we have the two different brick selections. We're looking at Coronado or El Dorado in both a running bond and a stack bond for those recessed areas. And I already touched on the roof. For the windows, we are proposing the CGI Sentinel series, mostly single hung windows. We do have some clear stories that will be fixed, and in the bronze metal finish. It's a dual paned insulated glazing system with muntins within the brick enclosures, or wall types I should say, and it's got a simulated true divided light with those muntins, and almost all of these will be operable and single hung. And here we have some of the section details at the head. You can see the depth that we get from the glazing to the facade we have a flashing system that is a continuous extrusion, which allows us to set back that window. And while it's a framed building, we think that this relationship is very historic in nature, and one wouldn't be able to tell that it's a steel framed building, but maybe think that it's, you know, a more traditional block or brick building. We're looking to accent and cover the porches and cantilevers with a wood trellis. We've got this out to bid. We don't have a manufacturer selected yet, but this is the design intent, that it'll be a stained wood with some metal fastening features that give it that historic nature. And here we have a stained wood beaded board at the entry soffit, which is a little bit different than the above, but since it's so close to the pedestrian level and really able to be experienced, we're trying to achieve this look here at all of the front entrances. For the porch and stoop material, it will be a cast-in-place concrete, stained and scored, and as Josh mentioned, we have broomed finish poured concrete sidewalks and aprons for the garage entrances. Our entry doors are a 9-light over 1 panel with glazing above masonite. It's a Durastyle Artisan in stained fir, we think. It's going to depend on availability, but this is the intent for the aesthetic. And we have quickset bronze hardware. If I'm showing any actual photos on the right that don't match this bronze finish, the intent is bronze finish. I wasn't able to find reference photos that may have the exact same finish that we're choosing. Same goes for this flush mount. But at either side of the entry doors and a flush mount at the underside of the porch, we've got a Justice Design by Moceno flush mount square or rectangular light fixture, and then we've got these wall sconces in the powder coated bronze finish as well. These also are on either side of the garage entrances on both units. And we've selected this Carriage House Canyon Ridge by Cloplay garage door. The intent is for these lights above to be divided similar in vertical fashion, similar to this reference photo. However, that did not make it into the model. And in this interior motor court that we're proposing between the two buildings, we're looking at a turf block. It's an Aquastorm turf block with a gray finish and the ability to grow in the interstitial space. Throughout that entire motor court, we are currently sizing that for underground stormwater storage vaults. It looks like it's going to be pretty much the entire motor court that is housing these underground vaults, but this will be a good way to allow for that to percolate through. Any kind of excess rain or water can percolate more quickly through that. So as we look at the three-dimensional view, this is looking west down Oak. We can see that currently unimproved alley that we will be improving. The mortar court entrance is beyond. We think that, especially when you look at it from the pedestrian experience, having the facade step back, particularly at the entrances, the first and second level, allows for quite a bit of facade undulation and kind of breaking it up into multiple unit types rather than one continuous building. Here we can see the front porches that are along Oak, or some landscaping and planter boxes every other unit. Here we can see the building in relationship to the contributing structure to the west, and the softening of this roof line both at the second and the third level we feel is an improvement from our previous proposal. We do have some landscape plan for this interstitial space between the two properties, along with, as Josh mentioned, we have 6 magnolias going along the right-of-way here. As we move forward through the alley, we have a 20-foot, it's a 15-foot alley, I believe, on this side. However, we have a requirement for the 20-foot fire access, so we do have a Miami curb here and a pedestrian walkway, which is sufficient for the fire department to access the units. And as we come around into the motor court area, you can see that we're planning on having this feel more like its own cul-de-sac and kind of private area for use when it's not in use by vehicles. We think that rather than having the 2 units face away from one another, we can create an own amenity of sorts along with mitigating the stormwater as much as possible. Let's go up. And each unit will have its own condensing unit on top, as centrally located as possible, as to not be visible from the street level. And I believe that concludes our portion of the presentation. That's Josh, do you have anything else? All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights Design Guidelines with the plans that we reviewed on November 19, 2021. There is a letter of support from the Tampa Heights Civic Association that Mr. Wolf referenced. It is in your packet. Just a little housekeeping. Moving forward, that the PD, on page 3 of your staff report, where it says new construction and additions on page 42, the PD addressed the majority of the items on the upper section in the middle paragraph. So there's 11 bullet items that touch upon new construction: the scale, the height, and the width, the massing and building form, the setbacks, orientation and site coverage, and rhythm, alignment, and spacing were addressed through the PD, with the caveat that they allowed for the 5-foot undulation for the project to move forward through the CA process that you saw tonight. The remaining items are on the table this evening, which are the materials, the link between the old and the new, the facade proportions and window patterns, entrances and porch projections, and roof forms. And then just to conclude, maintaining quality within the district. The majority of the conditions were addressed that staff had that were on page 3 and 4. Just to go through them briefly, the first item, the granite curbing, he addressed. The hardscape and landscape, there was a complete presentation. There is no fencing associated with the request this evening. They are 2 different unit types. and he addressed the wall sections and how they differed. He touched upon the roof forms within the district and how he made modifications from the PD process to the review this evening. The cantilevering of the front elevations were something that were a little forward. I think he incorporated brackets that are more traditionally period appropriate instead of just having them hanging out. I'd like to see, he walked us through the rendering to show the different facades on the building. I'd like for him to address the lower section, if there is a foundation enclosure, or how is that treated? Is the siding coming all the way down? Is there a little gap to show that there is some elevation to the structures, or is there different materials as it approaches grade? There was some brick selection that is shown and window selection as he sharpens the request moving forward. If anything changes with the window selection, it should be delegated to staff. And then the brick selection is one that we usually interact with the applicants. They either bring it into the office or we meet them on site to have that final selection. Looking at the staff report, I believe that concludes my portion of this, and I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Excuse me, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Mr. Vila, can you confirm that there's also a letter of disapproval or objection from Keith Warshawski? I don't know if the board members received that as well. Okay. And it's I see it as ARC 21408.
That is in our packet.
Okay, thank you.
We do have that. All right, so we'll go ahead to public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to speak for or against this project, please step forward at this time. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close that component, and we'll go ahead and ask questions. Anyone for the agent or the staff?
I have a question about the retention vault.
Yeah.
So you have roof drains that lead directly to the retention vault, is that correct?
Yes, some of them do. We're sloping the building towards the north building, slopes towards the south, towards the retention vaults. And then I believe we're going into the sewer on the south building, or to the stormwater system on the south building.
So there are no eave spouts anywhere on the front elevation, so everything slopes to the back. And then, so there are no internal drains, it's all a gutter system on the back?
Yes.
Okay. And then the back building also has a gutter system on the back that is then directed underground to the vault?
That's right. Both of the buildings, the roofs will drain into the vault
Okay.
directly. So there'll be rain leaders.
Okay, so they drain directly, because I'm unaware of a system that allows you to have it percolate and get into the vault.
No, these will be, the rain leaders will tie directly into the vault.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Do you have something that works for the grass paver? Does the water that goes down on the grass paver actually get to the vault somehow, or are you just relying on?
That's more so for surface water. The vault and the courtyard will actually have drains. So in addition to the pervious pavers, so that area will actually drain directly into the vault through area drains. So there will be a number of area drains that will go into the vault.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
We're still working through some of that with our civil.
Yeah, so we'll probably put gravel in there.
Oh, okay, I can.
Will you have a foundation enclosure on the, other side of the building, or will it run on?
We're gonna bring the siding down on the sides of the building. The brick will cover any kind of foundation or footing that will be on the front. And we do have some small landscape to also hide that transition between the foundation and the siding.
But the building is going to be slab on grade, is that?
Slab on grade.
Yeah.
I do want to note that we talked about, I believe, the finished floor elevation in the previous hearing and the PD submission. So we have raised that up to an average, I think, of about 2'4" above existing grade as the site slopes from the west to the east. So we have modified that since our initial submission 2 or 3 months ago.
Could you go over that cantilevered roof section again?
Yes. I believe this is the area that Ron was referencing. Where do we had, I'm sorry. Previously, we didn't have any brackets or external support shown for this slight cantilever between the first floor and the second floor. And we've instead, or since, included this trellis that runs all the way across to provide that visual support for that second level.
Does this program go all the way around to the backside?
It does.
That's
I
the
don't know
only
how much
elevation
I don't know how developed we've made the model to that point.
It's the only elevation you didn't show us, so I was just curious.
Let's see if we can't get over there.
We-
I don't believe we put landscape
We
back there.
actually discussed in the prior hearing that there weren't a lot of resolved elevations for the rear components, so it would be great to see those.
It's similar in aesthetic as this building. Now we have slight little landscape that needs to be applied here, but we're using the similar materiality and facade articulation as we are in the rest of the project, along with modifying the roof types and continuing this greater sloped mansard roof around the corners.
So I actually do have a question about your roof slopes.
Yeah.
Why the 12 and 12? And I understand the view, but what got you to the 12 and 12? Because it's a dramatic shift from the slope you had before.
Right. So the intent was to have the perceived roof line be dropped down specifically at the edges and the corners in order to create habitable living space. However, we weren't able to have a lower sloped roof. We thought that this would be a little bit more in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood and existing hip and gabled roof structures.
So you're actually using components, the lower components of that slope to give you the head height in the occupied space?
Yes.
Okay.
So the flatter roof, is that your max height? Is that why?
The top of this coping at this ridge is the max height at 37'2". And we are working currently through our structural to figure out where this flat TPO roof will slope in order to accommodate the scuppers on the rear and the downspouts, along with maintaining the spans that we need to span across the units.
What's your current parapet height?
37'2" above grade.
No, but what is your parapet from the roof slab,
At the
roof deck?
At the front, I could guess at it, or I could look at a drawing. I'm guessing it's probably 3'2",
Okay.
less than 5,
And
more
your-
than 2.5.
Have you sized your condensing units yet?
We have not.
Okay.
We have not gotten to the energy calc phase yet.
Can you show that roof plan again, or just go to that view in the model again? Okay.
Based on the size of these units, they're probably gonna be somewhere around 3.5 ton.
Yeah, yeah.
Not very big.
Going back to the roof slopes, what got you to the reverse slope on the projections? They're just kind of an oddity.
Yeah, I think it's about differentiation and creating separate unit types and feels along the facade. It gets a little bit staccato and repetitive in nature if we were to maintain the same aesthetic. And I think that if it were to be a simple parapet here, if we were to forego having sloped roofs all the way across and do this reverse slope roof, do just a simple parapet, I think that's out of the aesthetic of that craftsman style. So we wanted to give it at least a small soffit, but just a slight slope to drain back to the roof, and hopefully give it some extra intrigue along the elevation.
I'm going to ask this question, and I am a contractor, not an architect. But is there anything up there in that space stopping you from bringing that soffit down? I feel like the roofs are fighting each other now. And
specifically in these
those two those two spots. And was there any thought to creating maybe even I hate to use the word Victorian because that's not the style you have here, but almost a hipped slope of some sort that brought that soffit line down but still created the slope? But just for me in particular, there's just, I don't know, there's something fighting against itself there.
Yeah, I think if we look at the, we had a continuous soffit line on one of the previous presentations and just bumped them out at those bump outs. From the perspective and street level, that sameness here, so we did try that, I believe what you're referencing. I felt like this made the building feel like it was more continuous and massive and one large building rather than multiple smaller units that share walls. So we did explore that, and I think that this might be what you're referencing, and thought that it was more successful to break it up from an elevational perspective. And while we understand that these reverse sloped roofs are, higher in elevation, we think that by switching the sequence of the units to only have two of them allows us to be more appropriate at the corner with how we.
Is the front edge of this reverse slope, you can leave it here, are the higher portions of that reverse slope, is that at that 37?
That's at the 37 too.
So I think that you're going in the right direction from the prior to what you're showing now in terms of trying to do this, right? Mm-hmm. Make more of that rhythm happen and the push-pull happen both vertically and horizontally. But I think what I like about the prior one, and it goes back to your roof slope change, is that now they're fighting. I agree they're fighting because there's not enough differentiation. They're so close to being at the similar elevation when you look at it from a perspective, and that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see the full on, right? We don't see the world in elevations. That they're so close now. That 12 and 12 pitch is doing you less good on the upper story than the lower slope you had before, because it allowed those three lower projections and the two taller projections to have more relief. And I know you need the head height for your spaces.
I have a different read than that. I think that if they were all at a higher elevation, there's less undulation. Maybe I'm not hearing you correctly, but
I'm not saying move your eaves. To me, I feel like the three lower ones and the two taller ones, the reverse slope ones, they're so close in elevation, and because you've also picked that higher slope, which kicked it up to that 37, the larger roof in the background. Now they're all competing for the same elevation, and so there was more play elevationally, vertically, and you have the lower slope in the main
Okay, I
roof.
see.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I also feel like the reverse slope is fighting that a little bit right now because of that.
And maybe that's why I've asked, and maybe that's what I'm seeing, because I almost feel like now I want to see the building go taller. Just so we can accomplish
Well,
something.
I feel like, and that's why I'm saying that 12 and
Right.
12 is not helping, because I feel like you need to keep extruding the 5 pieces at the front to make it work. now.
And I think that's something that we could definitely explore and would be advantageous from a structural standpoint as well, is that 5-foot interplay that we're talking about with the ARC, that
Yep.
includes the height as well, correct?
Yeah.
I think we're pretty tight on our tolerances structurally and space-wise on the interior with what's shown, as we were trying to maintain to what we previously stated as that 37'2" height limitation.
Yeah.
If we were afforded a little bit more height in order to create further undulation and differentiation between those different roofs, I think that's something that would be advantageous to the project.
I think probably that's something that needs to be considered for sure. In regards to not the rhythm, but the detailing and its comfort within the district, I do think there are certain elements that are missing in terms of the detailing. Traditionally, you would support roofs and eaves with bracketing, right? So if this is arts and crafts inspired or even cottage inspired, I would expect some sort of detailing trim that goes to that conversation that you would normally have between a vertical and a horizontal. So just to help continue to break down the sense of mass in this and bring more of that scale potentially.
I think that would be in keeping with the aesthetic and certainly not.
And you
opposed to-
haven't looked at that yet, right?
We have
That
not
hasn't
tried
been
to
exercised.
apply that. We were very concerned with the articulation and detail and also setbacks at the ground level. My worry without trying it yet was that it would be too busy of a facade. We already have a lot of undulation in plane.
Yeah, but
and thought
I
that
think
that-
if you go look at some historic examples in the arts and crafts specifically, and then some of the cottages, especially with your boxier moves, I think you'll see that there's some play that you can still add that'll help break down help with that scale.
Yeah, absolutely willing to do that.
Okay. I'm sorry, I know I'm taking over. Any other questions?
What is the absorption and reflectivity of the black roof? Have you?
So this is showing as black. We've chosen that gray shingle.
Okay,
roof.
so it's really gray. Okay.
It's meant to be, it's showing a little reflective now. It's meant to be gray. I think if we looked at our material palette, it's probably a better reference on the design intent than the video game.
Is this the one that kind of mimics a slate look?
No, these are architectural dimensional shingles.
This would be
Asphalt
more
shingles.
indicative of the final result.
And what's the actual color on the really dark color where you have the
We actually don't have, we don't consider color in our
we don't,
debate.
we don't, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to have that debate, but we can't.
Okay.
Can we go to the rear facade just one more time? And I'm more concerned with the back building where we're facing other residents. Has there been any thought on this rear facade of giving it some sort of defining character, a little more so? I mean, I realize it's the rear, but
I think we could use the brackets to support these slight cantilevers here and also at the roof line.
Why is it so blank in the siding area? Is that a stair in there?
This is,
In the
there's
corner.
a stair here. This is all, I think the right answer is that it didn't get translated to the three-dimensional model. Our elevations actually probably have glazing here.
yes.
So do you have the elevations in the drawing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Fine.
There should be a secondary opening right here. There's a bathroom adjacent to the, off the kitchen at each level here. Yeah, so that's the second level. There should be, or that's the third level, I'm sorry. There should be a window here.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, could you, yes, you just zoomed all the way out like that. Do you have a floor plan of your upper level at this scale?
The third level?
Yeah.
Would you like me to zoom in?
You know, one of the things that I recall as being a quirk in looking at townhouses in older cities in the Northeast is in a whole row of townhouses. The end units were always the ones that were coveted because the end walls themselves were articulated, had more windows, you had a greater degree of daylight conditions within the unit. And specifically, the majority of those dwelling areas, the living rooms, the living areas of the unit, were always placed on those outside walls to take advantage of that illumination. You seem to have done a cookie cutter job with this, without really taking a good hard look in some cases in what's happening to the immediately outside environment. Obviously, the townhouses within the string are very susceptible to that cookie cutter, but once you get to the ends or corner situations, a whole different vocabularies can sometimes come into play. And I think that's one of the things you were looking at earlier when you were looking at that backside corner of the rear units. You know, you have this big blank wall, you know, where are the windows? You know, you have a perfect opportunity to do the windows and illuminations. Have you looked at that in many respects as part of the topology of these townhouses?
We have, and we've made a few efforts on the second and third level, specifically at the corners, and as well as the units where we have stair landings that are on sidewalls, which would otherwise be demising walls, and we've tried to increase the glazing and with slight bump outs and material changes in order to make that not be what would otherwise be a demising wall if it were an interior unit. I think that there is probably room to reimagine some of what happens on this corner, specifically as you're able to see it looking down the alley. I think we could take an approach that would be similar to what we've done on this corner on the northeast corner of this alley, where we've increased the amount of glazing and materiality.
Because that's a very attractive corner you've developed there.
And I think we could probably take some of that language over to the others as well.
Yeah.
The back end of it, the same?
It's not.
The back.
We haven't, it just didn't get fully modeled yet.
So could you show us on the second and third levels on that rear corner, how might you add some glazing, just real quick?
Yeah. So I think what we could do here is these units, in terms of plan, are somewhat bisected across the garage demising wall on the ground floor, and that language continues all the way up. So there's opportunity to actually mirror what's shown here on this plan and maybe pivot it so that the kitchen could have some clear stories above it if it were on the other side, and let that be kind of its own statement. And that could happen on, and then this one already has that condition. And then at the third level, the same is true, where we could start to figure out how we can reorient this one so that the master suite, I guess this isn't the master, but the bedroom finds itself on that corner and gets better light. And we could just switch those two without much issue. Same goes for here.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to work with staff to ensure that that is a possibility and gets followed through with.
And in a townhouse, you know, they're narrow, they're deep, any way you can get light into them is a big advantage.
Remember that they do have, I assume that they have a skylight over the stair, right? Or that is associated with the stair?
Yeah. So here you're not cutting through, if you can see this section I have up.
Yes, we do see it.
Oh, you guys
sorry.
see it?
I didn't know if you were waiting for our answer.
No, so,
we can,
yeah,
we can see a wall section.
We've tried to create
with
this
the skylight.
This vertical penetration. There's actually,
But
this is an opening here. Wasn't drawn correctly, but we've created this vertical void that extends all the way into the dining and living room area, that allows that natural light to come into that central corridor is what's always most difficult to make it feel natural.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is our way of addressing that typical issue in townhouses.
I know my, let's leave this section up right now. I know my fellow commissioners have voiced some concerns about roof slopes, the complication, brackets, all this sort of materiality that's involved with that. Part of it being a point of you're in a historic district, and that's the nature of the craftsman-type buildings that are there. But I do wish to want to point out, in furtherance of their discussion, you all went through a lot of trouble and care in developing your framework for your flying work over your porches and through those, you know, those bump outs, if you will, those bays that you have, how you support them, how you articulate that. And that kind of articulation is what's missing at your other overhangs, such as on the backside over the garage doors, or at the overhangs of your roofs, or the flies of your roofs. If you had that same attention to detail over there, I think this would be much more convincing.
Understood, and I think there's opportunity for us to apply that same rigor to those elevations that you're referencing.
Any other questions? None. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like to add anything.
I think that we would like to just point out that after working with the staff for quite some time in the neighborhood association, we really feel like not only have all parties that have been involved in this process really created a better project, I think it's been noticed that there are some areas that could use a little bit of the same treatment that we've shown in other elevations. However, we think that we can work with city staff to accommodate those, and we would prefer to not take up anybody else's time or take up another slot on a second hearing, if that's possible. If we can have some stipulations on this that we're able to accommodate those and address those issues with staff, we'd like to, we're excited to get moving on this project. So if that's possible, we'd like to see that happen. Other than that, I think that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case. Commissioner Sutton?
No, actually, in spite of what we may be sounding like on this dais, I find the proposal for this development really quite charming in many respects. The introduction to, I think, this quantity of brickwork, to me, fits very, very nicely with that existing commercial structure that's immediately next door. You know, we are reminded that in these older neighborhoods, they weren't really built as a monolith. You know, there are varieties of different scales, densities, even changes in use as you go up and down these streets. And I think this is in part a continuation of that on a more contemporary level. But I think it's still very charming in many respects.
I really do think that they've done a much better job since the first time they came before the board in terms of breaking up the mass and trying to make it more scaled more to that residential feel, walking along the street and being within the neighborhood and actually participating in the community of the neighborhood. So I do commend them. I just feel like there's like some finishing touches that needs to be made, and for the most part, I do think most of them can be addressed by working with staff. I just don't know how comfortable we are with the extent of some of the others.
That was gonna be my comment, was how.
I still feel like the rear building and the rear elevation of the front building are just being not given the same attention. And I understand there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. I get it. I know how to build a Revit model. I know how much time it takes, but there are so many different ways to address how we represent things, and I just feel like there's enough here for us to have to consider that to ask staff to do our job just doesn't make sense in this case. So
If you flip the rear buildings around, we're maybe not having this conversation because that facade mirrors what we're seeing facing the street. But because of the layout of the development, we have to take into account this rear facade. Because it
Well,
is
all
facing.
facades for that matter.
Well, true, but we're facing other homes.
right, and not only that, the rear building is visible because it is an L-shaped alleyway. And unfortunately, there's no neighbors to really help with the visual qualities of the rear building, that it becomes even more important that we understand what's going on. And I think turning the corner into the alley is a big deal. And there's still a blank facade there as well. So
It is a big deal, but it is still an alley.
Yep, but these are walkable neighborhoods, and we talk about this all the time in all of our historic districts about.
We do. The rear is always like a simplified version of the rest of the residents. And I agree, but I don't think that we need to talk about things like mirroring or treating all corners in the same fashion. I think that it should be treated and thought out, but not in the same level of detail as the front facade. It's like treating the back of a accessory garage structure in a normal.
Unfortunately, these aren't accessory structures.
No, but in the
They're
same.
3-story
37
high.
feet tall.
In the same level of detail and reduction in detail from the front to the back.
I agree with that. And I've made those points before, but how much do we say staff can do? And it isn't part of our jurisdictional requirement.
I think they have shown an adequate amount of detail, actually. And additional bracketing seems to me to be kind of gilding the lily here. And it begins to, they have presented a fairly contemporary version of the arts and crafts bungalow that we see. And I fear that contemporary version of the arts and crafts bungalow is going to suffer with brackets. And as for the rest of it, I think that, I think that they have made, or at least they have committed to working their corners, providing a little more glazing there, which I think is a very good idea. And so I think that allows, that is sufficient instruction if we include that as a condition.
Just seems like an almost burden to staff, just because of the amount that it may be.
The other point that we had been questioning was the roof forms and the roof line and the roof potentially growing taller. Because we did make that allowance for the vertical as well as the horizontal.
Is there not a height limitation in the neighborhood?
We allowed in the PD that they could have a 5-foot realm to play with beyond that.
But it already seems to me like it's a pretty tall building for the surrounding environment.
Which is where those conversations came from, maybe reducing the slope of the Mansford.
Right.
To try to bring that line
If they reduce the
down.
slope, then they can do a little bit of that play.
Yeah, they can get a little more play in there.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I hear what she's saying, and we don't want them to have to wait another month, or 2 months, or 3 months, whatever that next meeting is. But we also don't want to have to put staff in a position where they're spending days going back and forth on one project for something that we should be doing.
Right. And this isn't like one single residential structure. This is several units, 2 buildings, 3 stories.
I sympathize with the time frames, for sure.
Yep.
I think it depends on how we write the conditions.
I agree. I don't think that it's unreasonable for staff to manage roof modifications and bracket details.
There's
Well,
more than just
I don't know
bracket
that
details.
bracket details are gonna be on the table. We're talking about windows and window placement and rhythm
Roof pitches.
and alignment.
Heights.
Yeah. Those are, when we say like, you pick the stair spindles, we're okay with that.
Bump
We're
it
talking
out.
about windows, roofs, height. Those are big.
So, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. So if there's a concern about the height of what this project is, the board has already, and the city council's already approved the height.
We're
So-
not worried about
We're
the
not concerned
height. We're
about the
talking about the
overall.
relationship of the roof forms that we questioned them about before. And so there were 3 different heights right now, and that's what we're talking about. Do they play with the roof slope to finesse that? And whether or not we think that should go to staff or come back. That's what we're talking about. It's not the height of the roof.
So, I mean, if you guys want to discuss what your conditions are and see if you guys all want to agree it doesn't seem like there's been a discussion about what the conditions are that you
We
want.
haven't got there yet.
We're trying to get there. I apologize, but we're trying to get there.
So the laundry, I mean, we're talking roof pitch, varying roof heights potentially, and/or changing the roof heights, additional glazing.
They have the 5 feet to play in.
Right. When I say height, I don't mean
Higher.
max height. I'm saying in relation to each roof style and where it's at on the building.
So you're talking like a parapet height?
Right. Well,
It's,
just in relation to the next roof line beside it.
right, we
The
can't
question came
say
up-
parapet height, because then you're limiting what we're talking about. It's relationship from different types of roof to roof. It's not the roof parapet, because then you're just talking about the mansard roof
Right.
component.
think we're talking about all the relation across the entire facade of the building. And instead of, the comment that was made was, we felt like they were fighting each other. So is the fix bringing that roof line down? Is it bringing the pitch down? Is it bringing the pitch down of one, raising the pitch of another? I don't know, I'm not a designer.
Right.
If it was just that one item, or if it was just the windows, I think we definitely parlay that to the staff. I feel like we've got 6 or 8 items.
Yeah.
Even though he's sitting right there, we can't just.
I would agree that the request for additional detailing such as brackets is not necessarily the best game to be played here in regards to what it contributes back to the neighborhood. Okay, I concede that. But the idea of glazing, the amount of glazing on the facades and what it does in return to value for the project and for the neighborhood, because I can tell you, as someone who would be prospectively looking for a property, the more windows I have to look out and get light through, the happier I would be. And 2, the more of that breakdown of the big facades, even that turn to the alley, the better it is for the neighborhood, that sense of scale and pedestrian feel, rather than being, somewhere else in the city. So, I think those are big deals, and I personally don't see that as something that staff should be taking on. This is not a single story, this is not a single family residence.
It's not, but have they brought enough detail and, I guess, competence in their window placements to date that we believe that they can make the modifications with staff?
I think they're getting there. And I think in due time, yeah, they're definitely gonna get there. It's just, I think it keeps coming back to, do they get there and then come present to us and we say, thumbs up? Or do they get there by working directly with staff to expedite the process? And we have no jurisdiction at that point.
If someone wants to entertain a motion, certainly.
Well,
What is the exact list of concerns? It's
More windows, corners, and roof lines.
right. So it's
been
windows. So
three
it's
things.
windows and roof lines, right?
Are we taking brackets off of our list?
Yeah, that was just a comment and a question, a line of question, that's not a.
Mhm.
Commissioner Taylor,
Right.
they turned on the mic. Commissioner, they turned it on for you. I couldn't hear what you were just saying.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that rear facade for me it's the other face of the property. And so that was another item that we discussed was, is there any sort of facade change other than just glazing or additional glazing?
Is there something that we needed to consider?
Are you asking a question of staff?
I just don't know if we're continuing to debate this and put a motion forth, or are we?
In the past, when the board has come to.
Hold on one second, Mr. Vila. If we're asking questions of staff, we've got to have a motion to reopen the meeting.
I move to reopen the meeting.
Somebody second it.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So,
To kind of jump in with the discussion that's going on. In the past, when there's been a clear consensus of the board moving forward, they formulate that motion in an articulated and streamlined fashion that we could follow. We feel comfortable that we could address those items. Now, it's the board's prerogative to see if there's too many items to delegate to staff as you move forward.
So,
But about the rear facade, as Commissioner Taylor's asked, are there any conditions about the rear facade that they needed to address?
Should we close the hearing again? Do we need to do that?
while we got it open, I want to ask Ron a question.
Ask him your question.
I'll ask away.
So you feel comfortable working through a longer list with them directly without it having to come back in front of us?
With
they
a
have
clear,
clarity.
concise delivery from the board, that everybody's on the same page, that is united coming forward.
Just wanted to hear it one more time.
Yes, sir.
So in modify,
Wait,
sorry.
are we
Yep,
done
yep, yep.
asking questions and all that?
Well, no, if we're done asking.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
The applicant is entitled to a rebuttal.
Yes.
If there's questions
Oh, yeah.
asked.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Start the clock.
So I think that a lot of the points that have been touched on are valid. I want to reiterate that this is truly, I mean, it may look like these are rears of houses as shown in this depiction. This is an alley, and this is a rear fronting building. I think that I agree that there are some more glazing opportunities that we can accommodate by shifting the unit plans. But I wouldn't want to get so ornate that it is not only setting a precedent that alleys need to have quite articulated facades as right-of-ways, but that being said, if we can come to a set of conditions, we are prepared to work with staff if Ron's okay with that, utilizing some of the detailing that we have shown in other portions. We can take those same aesthetic moves and apply them a little bit more carefully and thoroughly, which I agree that it's apparent we have not done yet. I think it's a matter of putting in the effort to really flesh out those facades to the same degree of care that we have shown to the others. Now, not the same degree of articulation perhaps, but the same degree of care and understanding of how the facade relates to the interior units and how it is visible from the alleyways and from the street front. If we can set conditions like that, and then if we had a 3 or 4 foot room to wiggle on that roof line articulation, I think that we can come to something that is in keeping with the comments that we've heard today, that provides a little bit more of that delineation between those separate roof types. And I think beyond that, if those are the conditions that you all are considering, I think that there's ample opportunity to address those given the aesthetic precedent that we've set forth in other areas of the building. And I think it would be not as much of a burden on staff if we are just taking that same rigor from other areas of the facade that we have spent more time on to those less forgotten about areas, if that is pleasing to you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well said. Thank you. All right, we're going to close the public hearing again, and we're going to finish discussing and come up with a motion.
So increasing the differentiation between roof forms is the note that I had made. Is there a more concise way that we would make a request to the roof form changes?
Is the intention of modifying those roof forms just to make them different from one another, or are we looking at them to differentiate the units from one another?
For me, it's the second. It's to make it more clear about the differences between them. Right now, they're fighting. All 3 of the different roof lines are fighting. There's not enough differentiation between them so that they cannot stand alone comfortably.
That's where I'm at.
And you're not arguing that the units need to be clearly defined. You're saying the roof form.
It's the roofs that
This
cap
and
them.
this need to be different.
All
I
of them
think from
need
the
to have a better-
modifications they've made from the last time we saw this project to now, they've done that, especially on the street side.
Yeah, yeah,
They've done that.
yeah.
It's the roof lines that are now, and the roof lines came from a comment that came from the last time from here. So he's trying to get there.
Yeah.
He's done a really good job of getting a lot closer.
Perhaps if we look at the rear elevation, which is on our screens right now, you can see the amount of differentiation between the low side of the roof and the upper, and that.
Well, that's
extruded-
because they don't complete
Yeah,
the
they-
mansard
yeah.
at the rear, because they're
Right.
using that to flow
Mhm.
off.
Yes.
So that's why it helps them, and that's why I stated, when you brought the 12 to 12 pitch in, you took away some of that ability for the roof to live comfortably with the other
Die
two.
into that, yeah.
Right. They got too close to one another, elevationally. When you see it prospectively, you see that, right? So it no
Yeah.
longer, yeah.
Yeah, if it
So I
drops-
think there's just a little tweaking in the slope that needs to happen. But it is something that needs to be considered throughout the development. Obviously, you can't do it one place and not think about it moving around. So that for me is the big piece there for the roof. They're very close. I agree with Commissioner Taylor. They're really close on that. And I could give that to staff very comfortably and say, hey, I know you got this.
Okay, so Shauna, you had, what I felt was good wording on that. And
The other is the glazing, and with the flip-flopping of living rooms and kitchens and different
Mhm.
things, there again, I think he hit the point.
So I just want to point out, so as he's moving around the model, you see this end piece right here that he has stopped at?
Right.
You see how articulated that end is? Then when he flips to the other side, which is the other alley, the alley view, you see how blank that is? Even though he has a nice corner, there's something lacking there. And so when we're talking about the corners, there are more than 2 corners on this project. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not
Two
just
of them-
it's just
two
not
of
the
them.
corners, it's the
Right.
end wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you
Right.
zoom out of that right there?
See, even that has more expression than the other one. So, can they do this with staff? Sure, they can do this with staff.
And, but the intention though here is, we're talking numbers, windows. We're talking about numbers of, we're talking about the placements of.
I don't think we're saying a quantity of windows.
No, no,
I
no,
think
no,
we're
no.
saying that there be some reconsideration of the level of attention, not detailing, but I do think there's some articulation that needs to happen, just in terms of finishing off the end walls and the corners, especially at the rear structure.
Agreed on that. But we're
So did you write my note? Did you write it down?
But it's still the number of, the placement and rhythm.
But we're
To
not
break
giving
up-
them numbers, we're not giving
We're
them.
not, no numbers, but
Yeah.
the intent is to break up the expanse of blank walls at our end
Exactly.
units.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes, agreed. And some of that might be by an articulation of the corners, and some of that may just be by the placement of
It
more,
could
window
be
field
windows.
more
some ways.
fenestrations.
More fenestration, or whatever the magic is, the object is, use the fenestration, real or imagined, to break up the expanse.
No imagined, we
No
don't do
imagined.
imagined in the
It
district.
could be
Thank you
trim,
very
it
much.
could be,
I was worried there.
it could be roof lines, trim, windows, it could be a bunch of different
It's
things.
not
Yeah.
Disney. Sorry.
So we're asking for,
Here, I've got,
Have a
I've got
motion?
configure interiors as needed and incorporate additional glazing to
Let them
maximize-
worry about that part.
What do you mean? We have to do
Wait,
that.
say it again, sorry.
Configuring interiors as needed and incorporating additional glazing to maximize natural light in livable spaces and break up expanses of walls.
how about reconsideration of fenestration on end walls at each building?
He wants very explicit directions.
So are we comfortable?
Is that all we had?
So we've got 2 things, right?
Well, I've got the brick from Ron.
It's 2 main categories with subcategories.
Our discussions have gone on for a while, and I think that we are we are getting to the point where we're trying to hold the pencil for the architect here.
Oh, I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, in this case, I don't think so. I don't agree that we're trying to tell them exactly how to do it. We're trying to
Well-
say that you are so close, there are just a few things that need to be considered.
What I'm,
Okay.
We're
what
not
I'm trying to
holding-
do now is though, is just basically give staff a box that they can work with,
Mhm.
and it's all in the box.
Right. Okay.
How'd you say that?
Fenestration.
On end walls.
And walls of each building.
What was he doing?
Reconsideration.
We were basically doing that to break up the expanse of blank exterior walls at the end units.
Well, I don't think
And
the
we're not
interior
even
units
supposed
are a
to talk
problem.
about those.
Okay.
That's all I think we have, which is enough. If everyone's agreed.
Trying to make some language here. I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 21-408 for the property located at 409.
It's 409.
409 East Oak Avenue with the following conditions. That one, that the applicant work with staff to modify roof forms to better articulate a differentiation between units. And two, that the applicant shall work with staff to reevaluate the nature and placement of windows in their number, their placement and rhythm, to break up the expanse of blank exterior walls at end units. Because based upon the finding in fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights Historic District Guidelines of the City of Tampa, for the following reasons. That we have a scale, height, and width.
We are from materials down.
We're down to maintaining the materials within the district. Period.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Passes with a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Gila staff for the historic preservation. Moving to the next agenda item is ARC 21-540 for the address of 305 East Idlewild Avenue. This is in the Seminole Heights Historic District. The primary structure dates back to 1925, which is contributing to the zoning classification as SHRS. The request this evening is new construction addition to the primary structure with some site improvements. The addition is approximately 523 square feet. Moving to the photo presentation. Starting with a Sanborn map. Property in question is in the shaded green area. Does face Idlewild. It has a interior lot presence. It's on the corner of Idlewild and Branch as a reference point, and then you have Central to the east. Overhead, once again, the house faces Idlewild. You have Branch to the west, and you have Central to the east. Parcel is rather shallow in the front with a deep presence. Looking at the Craftsman style home, it's a one-story house that has a partial front porch with a porte cochere on the west side. Looking at the east elevation and the front facade. Looking at the abutting neighbor to the east. Going back to the subject site, looking at the porte cochere and that west elevation. And the property to the west, abutting. Some street shots. Here and here, this is to the west. And then looking at some historic fabric that's in the immediate vicinity as well. Going back to the subject site, looking through the porte cochere down the ribbon drive to the one-story accessory structure. Going to the rear of the subject site, has a double gable. And just another perspective of the rear elevation. Focusing on the detached accessory structure. And just a little closer. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, Mr. Dobbs will address the board, and he has been sworn.
So this is the, okay, now I can do it, okay. Thank you, sorry about that. Good evening, my name is Alan Dobbs, 5502 North Cherokee Avenue. I have been sworn. My clients who have owned this small 2-1 bungalow for a while, they want to add a master suite. They've done a lot of improvements to the property since they bought it, and so they just want to add a master suite. And part of that too is they really have no covered outdoor living space in the back, so a porch, rear porch is as well as what they're wanting to do. I'm going to go to the site plan, and I guess this microphone, okay, good. Okay, so north is up on this. So as you can see, the vehicular access is on the west side. They currently have no driveway. They just have their porte cochere. So we're going to do a new apron here, and then we're going to do some ribbons here. And I added some scoring, which was one of the comments that staff had. And then also, transportation is requiring us to add a, excuse me, 9x18 parking pad, so we have the 2 required spaces not any further forward on the property. So we couldn't do an addition here, so the addition obviously just goes off the back, and as you can see on this side here, we had a little bit of room to bump out, so we bumped out on the side. For this dark shaded area is the master bedroom addition, and then a really large porch to kind of, a couple other things with the site. There's really no trees within 20 feet, so there's no restrictions really on trees. And then also as far as Secretary of Interior standards, by doing an addition on the back, it's inconspicuous. It's minimal modifications to the existing structure, and it basically maintains the historic pattern of the neighborhood. The existing building, it has two bedrooms. This was like an old porch that's being used as like a dressing area currently. This is where their bedroom is. They've already redone this whole area here, and so this outline area is where it's sort of the extent of the addition. And then you can kind of see this in a little bit more detail. Here you have the master bedroom here, and they wanted the bathroom area here. Just all spaces that are in proportion to the house, nothing too big, but functional. And then a large rear porch. The building form was a little bit challenging because it has a simple gable that transitions down to a smaller gable in the back. So what we did with this addition, we created a side-facing gable, and you'll see how that works in the elevations. sorry, one other staff comment I forgot to mention is the air conditioning unit is right here, and screening was one of the comments they had. There's actually a fence, an existing fence here, so you don't see it from the right away. I think you probably saw those in the photo presentation that Ron made. So since everything's in the rear, the existing elevation, front elevation is like that, and then what you see is sort of an outline, and that's way far back on there. And then on the side, this is the vehicular side, where you see the most dramatic change, which is basically, this is where the kitchen is, so we aren't doing anything in this area. Then this is where the porch is. And we're doing a band here at the beam. There's a lot of different ways the bottom of the beams are traded on the bungalows in Seminole Heights. Some just have siding all the way down to a 3/4 inch horizontal board at the bottom, and then sometimes there's banding like that sort of matches the head of the window casing. So that's what we're doing. You can see the house sits on masonry piers, and the siding comes down quite low because you have the floor joist sitting on top of a sill beam, but at the porch we don't have that, so that's why the foundation enclosure is a little bit larger, at the porch. And then we went with different column configurations and patterns, but we decided ultimately just to go with one simple column. It's an 8x8 nominal column on the corner. There's existing precast concrete steps, so we're just going to relocate those. The existing rear elevation is right here, so you just have that simple door in the back, and then that's where that dressing room is. And so with the addition, we have the gable, and then the side-facing gable here. We thought about doing a gable on this side, but we wanted to keep it very simple and clean, so no gable on this side. And then you can see the porch on the rear looks just like it does on the side. These decorative brackets, Ron may have shown them in the photo presentation, but I have some photos of those. They're a little bit different, but we're going to maybe replicate what is existing there. And then on the side, same thing, the existing elevations here, this steps back here. This is where we're doing the addition, and then the rear-facing gable here. And again, the brackets, the windows are similar, but larger because we have to meet egress in the bedroom, and then a small window in the bathroom there. The materials are basically beveled lap siding that will match the existing. Foundation and screen enclosure between the masonry piers, which will have a brick finish, and you'll see that in the wall section detail. The casing trim around the windows will match the existing. Since it is a contributing structure, the windows will be wood. And then we're doing a dimensional asphalt shingle on the roof. The window details are pretty typical as far as, sort of the heavy sill with the little quarter round at the bottom as a transition piece between the siding and the sill. I can maybe zoom in on this a little bit. And then on the jamb, full 1.5 inches, so you have proper profile panning, or the face of the side casing sticks out 3/4 inches beyond the face of the siding. And then on the head, just the same profile member across the head, but then we have the extra drip cap and flashing over the window. I just move this to keep it simple. So the porch, actually I'm going to do the wall section first. So the porch has masonry piers with we're going to do a thin brick veneer over the masonry pier, and then we have the siding comes all the way down low, And then we have 2x4 frame wall construction with wood siding, bevel lap siding, as I mentioned before. The window details, we talked about those. And then a very important detail on these kind of bungalows is the eave condition. At the gable ends, typically that member is one member larger, or the barge rafter or fly rafter, and then the rafter tails are 2x6, and then there's 3/4 inch V-groove, tongue and groove with finished side down, and then 1/2 inch plywood go over all that, and then of course you have to have a drip right there. And then the porch, similar sort of detail with the foundation enclosure and a wood porch deck, a simple square column, 8-inch nominal square that has a little, just a very simple base and cap. And then, as I mentioned before, the how the beam is trimmed out, and then there'll be siding on either side that will go all the way up to this gable end vent that has the sill that matches the window. And then you kind of see these brackets on the gable end, which you saw in the elevation. There's only one exterior door, and it's a French door, but because it's an exterior door, I've presented this one to the board before on a lot of projects. It's a great door because it's so simple, and it has a very slight grain to it, and then the glass stop is very similar to the historic doors. And it's not wood, so it won't warp and rot. The windows are a Sierra Pacific. I didn't bring a window sample, but it's just a very, it's a standard wood window that Sierra Pacific makes. I've presented this window to this board in the past. Important details are the style and rail, and then the mutton profiles, but we don't have any divided lights in this project. It's a funny picture for a door hardware. It's in the back, so it's not going to be a entry lock set. It's just going to be the entry lock set on this house is a dark bronze, so we're just staying with the dark bronze. So it'll just be an orbit type knob, and then the deadbolt, and then for the lighting, we only really have one light, and it's the light in the ceiling of the porch, which would be this kind of a round, almost craftsman style or prairie style light. Then the roof shingles, currently they have dimensional asphalt shingles, but we're going to have the whole roof replaced, so these are kind of a heavy dimension asphalt shingle Timberline HD series. And this was a picture that I stole from Ron on his report. Was there, you can see the fence on the side, so you don't see the AC unit back there. You see the rafter tails and all the casing and trim, and this is bevel lap siding on the back. You can see one of those brackets. They're kind of odd. I don't think they're original, but they're interesting in that they have a 2x4 flat, but then they have a 2x4 at an angle, but we're proposing a 4x4 at an angle, but note that it doesn't stick out beyond the barge rafter, and that actually is fairly common in Seminole Heights. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Seminole Heights Design Guidelines. Under the conditions on page 4 of the staff report, through the presentation, they were all addressed. I'd just like to add that it's a refreshing application, that it's a very modest craftsman style home, well maintained as the photos show. The placement of the addition and the sensitivity with the one-story is something we don't see too often, so just wanted to put that onto the record. I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We'll open it up to public comment. If there's anybody here who would like to make comment for or against. No, we'll go ahead and close that then, and then commissioners can ask questions. Any questions?
Mr. Dobbs, it appears that there are full screens on the existing building. Are the new windows going to be double hung or single hung?
That is a very good question. Ideally, double hung, but nobody seems to use the double hung, and with most window manufacturers, they look exactly the same. So I'll go ahead and say that we're doing single hung, but the profile of the stiles and rails will be, historically appropriate. And also, I think it's important, like what you're saying with screens, that they do screens, that they be of the historic type where they're, they have the heavy stile and rails and they're hung from the top, rather than the aluminum insert type.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I love my double hung windows.
I know. Okay. Any other questions?
I have none.
Alrighty. We'll go ahead and, you have 5 minutes for a little.
I just thought I'd make it real simple after that last case. So.
You always do. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then, and we'll discuss the case. I really don't think there's...
I second what Ron said, and very refreshing. And it's nestled back there in the back. It looks like it's been there, should be there. Doesn't take away from the character of the home. Pretty self-explanatory.
Agreed.
Do you want a condition screen?
Oh, no.
All right. I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in case ARC 21-540 for the property located at 305 East Idlewild Avenue, because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Seminole Heights design guidelines in the city of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale, proportions, and rhythms are consistent with the existing structure.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
You have a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And one more with Mr. Dobbs.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Our last case this evening is ARC 21-555 for the address of 307 East Oak Avenue. This is in the Tampa Heights Historic District. The primary structure dates back to 1917 and is contributing. As I go through the photo presentation, you'll probably remember this house came forward. Mr. Dobbs was here a couple months ago to show a rear addition to the primary structure. This request this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for a detached accessory structure with site improvements. The current zoning classification is RM24, which allows up to a 750 square foot request and meeting accessory structure setbacks. So that will be indicated on the site plan that he presents this evening. Moving to the photos, starting with the Sanborn map. This is also an interior lot. This is on Oak Avenue, which had a lot of action this evening. To the west, we have Morgan. To the east, you have Jefferson. There is an alley that runs to the rear of the property. On the Sanborn map, it does illustrate that there was an accessory structure there. There currently is none there, and that's why he's proposing one this evening. Looking from above, you see some of the canopies and the site coverage with the vegetation, but it does indicate that the alley is still open, and you have Morgan on the west, Jefferson on the east, and Oak Avenue as the primary street. Looking at the front facade, and just walking you around, you'll get some cues off of the primary structure that will translate to the accessory structure. Just looking at the foundation here, that's obviously not original. Looking at the height from grade of the house, just like to show some of the difference varieties as you look at many homes throughout all of our historic districts. The front porch wasn't closed, but you still see the period columns that were here and the different profile of exposure of the siding from the enclosed porch to the original. Very large house. Back in the day, it was a prominent house. You see some of the patterns of the windows. Through the discussions of other homes, we talk about the importance of windows, and you're absolutely correct. Prior to the mechanical systems, the windows were aesthetic, interior and exterior, and then provided a function for quality of life in Florida. This is a non-contributing structure that is on the west side of the property. Just going back to the property in question. Looking at the front porch again. Property abutting is vacant. This is the rear facade of the primary structure. This is the lower portion. Looking above, which would have been the sleeping porch, as we talked about the importance of the windows and quality of life. And how it looks today, and some of the demise of the structure that's going to be rehabilitated through this process. And just focusing again on the lower section of the rear elevation. That concludes the photo presentation, and Mr. Dobbs will address the board.
Good evening. I'm Alan Dobbs. I have been sworn at 5502 North Cherokee Avenue. I am the agent on this project, and my client, David Sousa, is here, and I'm going to allow him a few minutes after I finish my presentation if he wants to fill in anything I missed and maybe just augment whatever I presented. So basically, with this house, in our former presentation, we never really addressed vehicular access or parking for this property. There isn't enough room on either side of the property for a driveway, so the only access is from the alley. And then also, there's a question on the attic and the feasibility of building out the attic. So, depending on how that goes, my client wanted to have the ability to have additional living space for like a guest house or something like that. So that's why we have a second floor rather than just a single-story garage. So, zoom into the back here. So a couple of the site constraints. One, I talked about like vehicular access from here and here is just not available. There's some fairly large trees around the property, and then there's one in the rear here. So that pretty much dictates doing a building on this side. There are no structures in the vicinity over here. Transportation has a requirement for vehicular entrance setback of 18 feet. So if we did that, that wouldn't work because we couldn't pull in because the building would have to be too far off the alley. So we did a side entry garage, and these are actually fairly common in especially in Seminole Heights, but I think there's a few in Tampa Heights and Hyde Park. So that having that vehicular entrance on the side allows you to have the building justified to the west side and to the south side here. 3 feet on the public right-of-way, but a little bit more than 3 feet because the building code does not allow any combustible material less than 2 feet from the property line. So that usually ends up being like 4.5 feet. And so we're 4.5 feet here. We have a little apron here, and we do have it scored just in the middle, keep it simple. But then we're doing pavers here. It was a little bit of a trade-off because when you're turning hard on pavers, like to go into a garage, they tend to migrate. But we want to use pavers because of the tree. So most of the parking will probably be these two spaces here. But we also have an additional space inside the garage. We wanted to provide 2 spaces out here because think everybody knows most people use their garage for things other than parking cars a lot of times. So, and also if they ever wanted to do an accessory dwelling unit here as a special use, they would have the ability to have an additional parking space, which is required. The building is 20 by 20. It was really not, we didn't have enough room to do a 2-car garage, so that's why we came up with the configuration that we did with 2 out and 1 in. And then there's also a covered connector right here, which you'll see in the elevations. And then there's also, we aren't addressing any fencing on this property except for some fencing that runs from this column over to here with the gate, and then concrete walk here. The floor plans, just to give you an idea of the elevations, is, let me zoom out a little bit. So this is the porch that was previously approved. So we're basically lining up the corner of this building, and this with there's a column. So we're lining up this column with this edge of the breezeway, and then the width is this right here, which is less than 7 feet, which is the maximum allowed by code. A lot of doors in this area, but it was done that way to provide flexibility so that you could go from the house right inside and up the stairs. Or if you're parked out here, you can go in and up the stairs. Or if you park in the garage, you can go through here and into the house. And it's pretty much a straight shot upstairs and around. You can see there's plenty of room around the car for storage. And then the second floor is basically just an open space. I know land development is very sensitive to people turning these into apartments illegally, so we're going to have a big note on here, no cooking facilities. It's just like a guest house for now, but it's just a standard full-size bathroom and a little sink and a refrigerator. And the placement of the windows, which you'll see in the elevations, we don't have any on the first floor on these 2 sides, primarily for privacy for this neighbor, but also alley here for security. But as you can see up here, we have them on all sides. And then here you can see the connector, which is set at the same height as the fascia and beam height as the porch. So these dashed lines show the foreground of the porch and then the connector, and I have a detail of that. And then a small window in the bathroom, because we also have this roof conflict here, so it made sense to have a smaller window there. And then a larger window in the stairwell, which I just realized I don't have that in the plan, so I'll correct that. And then this shows the building in the context of the house. We're a little concerned about the height here, but it's only a modest 2-story building, and this is a 1-story, so that's just going to happen. But you can see how the porch and the breezeway, those align. And then on the west side, facing the neighbor, you have just the 2 windows here. So the casing around the windows is going to be the same as the house, the primary structure, although we're not going to do any divided lights. We're going to keep it, if you recall, what you can see here, the house on the sleeping porch had 2 over 2. We're just going to keep 1 over 1. Going to have corner boards, and then siding that will match the house, and then the rafter tails, and then the little knee braces. I have some details of those. The elevation, east elevation of this, you can again see it in context of the house. Garage door, carriage house type garage door, and then a person door there. And then again, smaller window in the bathroom, and then a pair of windows there lined up with the garage. And then on the gable end, initially I didn't have anything. I just had these 3 brackets, but it looked a little empty, so I thought, well, maybe what we do is just replicate what's on the main house with the sort of the ABA rhythm of the gable end vent and window. I'm just going to move this. So the structure of the garage is just a monolithic slab footing, 2x4 frame walls, a 14-inch floor structure, and then the roof will be 2x6 tails on the trusses with 3/4-inch V-groove, tongue and groove, finished side down with 1/2-inch plywood on top, plumb cut rafter tails with a 3/4-inch minimum overhang there, and then I'll talk about the window details in a minute. The gable end, you have the barge rafter, which you see, and then this is a knee brace similar to the existing house, and then this is sort of a section through that gable end window, and then this is a detail through the connector roof, which is basically just a 3/4-inch wrapped beam, tongue and groove ceiling with a bed mold, like a 2-inch bed mold molding there, and then the window details similar to the previous project. You have the heavy large sill with a little quarter round underneath, and then the head you have a full 1.5 inch with the drip cap, and then also on the side casing, again full 1.5 inch side casing, and you see the sill there below. Oops. So for the site materials, the material for the brick in the driveway is just this simple basket weave with the border, red type brick. The fence, something a little simpler than just the little board on board with the dog ear. Thought maybe have a little more finished fence and 6x6 posts. For the door, just this sort of craftsman style, sort of a 3-panel but 6-light door, and then dark bronze hardware with a full single plate. The garage door, just a clopay. This is Canyon Ridge series, but again, similar to the door, but it has 3 lights over 2 panels, and it's a 9-foot door this way by 7 foot this way. We basically have 2 types of exterior lights. One is this kind, which is going to go over the person doors to the garage, but it was too small in scale to really go over the garage door. So the garage door, we're doing this, which is more of a gooseneck type light. So it creates a real nice parabolic light pattern on the door, garage door. The shingles that we're using on the house are dimensional asphalt shingles. So these are the using the same shingles on the garage. I wanted to point out the siding profiles. These are actually standard profiles from the Southern Pine Inspection Bureau. So this is basically a 1x6 that looks like it's a double lap siding. So that's what the main house has on it. And then where we have, like in the soffits, it's this profile right here, not beadboard, but like a double sort of V. So this building, rather than using wood windows, because that's always a really big cost concern for clients, we're going to use the Sierra Pacific H3. It does have a very historic type profile to the window and to the sashes, and so those have typically been allowed in the historic districts of Seminole Heights and Tampa Heights on previous projects. And just the last picture, this I realized I didn't have a detailed drawing of the knee brace, so This is a knee brace on the main house. Notice that it does not protrude the barge rafter, and it's just a standard 4x4 sort of knee brace, and then it has this very simple little OG curve at the bottom. So before I conclude my presentation, I'm going to see if my client wants to come up and maybe say a few words about this project. There's the microphone.
Perfect. I just want to take a couple seconds just to introduce myself. My name is David Sousa. I'm one of the owners. I want to thank personally now the committee and the staff for the support we have received so far in this project. We have a lot in our hands, but we're very excited to be part of this historic community, and we thank you for the support so far that we have received. As my neighbor said earlier, Mr. Schonbrun and Ms. Gross, our project pivots around preserving this house, and that's an important part for the neighborhood. I think Alan done a great job with the project and explaining a little bit of, in detail the interest that we have for this structure in terms of functionality, and also, to use the alley that is there. I think it will impact also positively the parking density also in Oak, and I think that's going to be, it is a key part in our project. So we thank you for your support in advance, and you'll see me here in every presentation going forward, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights Design Guidelines. We have 3 items that I'd like to elaborate on. One is that a design exception is required for the additional height. Anywhere in the city of Tampa, accessory structures can be a max of 15 feet in height. In the historic districts, they could go to 22.6 inches. So that process has to be started, and that's a process that goes through land development. If there's a mechanical unit that's going to be
I didn't address
shown,
that.
show it on your site plan, please. And then just discuss the method of connecting that you're going to do with the engagement of the connector into the primary structure and the detached structure. And that concludes staff's portion at this time. Thank you.
Do you want me to address those things before you ask questions? Okay. So the first thing is, I didn't talk about the air conditioning unit. So there's a mini split, but it's just on the side here. And since we aren't doing any fencing, we're just going to do a podocarpus hedge kind of around it to screen it. The other thing is the connector. It's because this house is elevated. This porch roof here is, it's at a certain height. So to have any kind of covered connector to this below this roof would look really odd. So the trade-off is to have it, let me get the, yeah. So the simplest and cleanest detail, in my opinion, was just to take the porch beam that we have going around here. There's a column right here. And then from that column, this beam comes off. And then this beam comes back and ties into this beam. And it lines with this corner right here. In elevation, you can kind of see how that looks there. There's the other side. I'll go ahead and put the site plan back on.
So I don't think there's anyone here for public comment, right? There's a hiding behind you. So we're going to go ahead and just close it and go to commissioners asking questions at this time. So if anybody has any questions, please.
I do, sir. Again, with your connector, I understand how you're springing this small roof form off of the roof and its structure from the main dwelling. But I can't help but notice that there is, if you will, a piece of this connecting roof's, I guess, eave that is just terminates right there at the corner of the building. It's almost like it wants to continue over the doors, over the front of the, you might want to pull up that elevation. You see how your trailing eave just dies?
You're talking
at the
about right
corner?
here?
Right there.
Yeah.
And then you take a look at your elevation where you have your garage doors. You have a man door at that location. You have, of course, the garage door. Have you given any thought as to the continuation of this to help break up this elevation?
No, I haven't, to be honest. But if I did, my biggest concern about the breezeway connector was the proportion and its height being so high. But it does, I guess, make sense because it's in alignment with the porch beam. But if you take it on across over here to cover this door, I think proportionally it may be too high. Let me ask my client a question, just real quick. If I may. The breezeway is one of the things that my client wanted. That was part of the program, you know. But I think if it's going to be a point of contention where we just can't get it to fit right with the architecture, we would be okay removing that element. Because it's not that big of a deal to go 6 or 8 feet in the rain.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, you have a lot of doors on the outside of that corner, and you know, they're weather safing, if you will, is probably a pretty big deal.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the only other thing I could think of is if we didn't do the cover connector, it is nice to have some sort of roof cover over a door, almost like a portico, but where the roof is bracketed instead of sitting on columns.
Mm-hmm.
So almost like doing something like this, you know, or on the side. You know, I know we can't design that here, but I think if the board has concerns about the breezeway and how it sort of fits with the architecture, we would be okay removing it, and then hopefully the board would be okay if we maybe work with staff on how to provide a little shading or cover device, bracketed roof over one of these doors or both doors.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is the proposed height of this structure higher than the primary structure?
You know, that's a good question. It was just I used 8 feet on the ground floor, and my client wanted 9 feet on the second floor, and then we just did the same roof slope as the house. So, so to answer your question, it looks like it's slightly higher. Although that would be hard to perceive. They'd probably look like they're about the same height.
It's not higher than the sleeping porch roof. Are you saying that?
Looks like it is to me.
Well, he didn't take the paper all the way up.
But
keep going. Go on to the beach.
yeah, well, I wanted to keep it
I know
parallel
the line,
to that line.
the line.
But yeah, but it's very close. But the other thing to think about too with the height is relative to proportion. So the proportion of this building is, you know, over 50% roof height to wall, whereas this is more wall with less roof.
Do you have an elevation from the front that shows it
Oh, yeah,
together
I certainly
with the
do.
form? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but.
You're fine.
Oh, right.
I know where I'm going with the question.
There it is right there. Yeah, you can see it slightly. higher.
No, I meant from the front facade.
Oh, from the front? No, I do not. No, sorry.
Yeah, I don't. We can talk about it. Any other questions?
That's really all I have.
Anyone else with a question?
No, not for me.
Okay. I think we can close, you have 5 minutes for a rebuttal. I always forget this stuff.
I think we covered everything, so I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and close the hearing and we'll discuss the case. I personally don't think the height differential is enough to make a stink about it, and I think you wouldn't even notice it from the front.
Don't know that you'll see it from the front, and clarify for me. The reason I asked was I know there's a height requirement that we may already be above.
He has to go for the
A design
variance
exception.
anyways.
Anyway.
The
He has to
design
go through a
exception.
design exception.
Yep,
That's the main reason I was asking.
yep.
So we
I
can,
don't think you'll see it from the street. Now, the connector, great idea, but I think his windows get in the way.
Well, not so much the window, but just, you know, catching that
No, I know.
fashion along the side might be an idea for them to look into. And I'm not gonna hold their feet to the fire on that. I was thinking more along using it as part of the element that's already there to tie the whole thing together.
Yeah, I personally like him separate,
As in stark separate.
but that's because that's kind of more in keeping with what the historic fabric is of the neighborhood. But I also understand why we're connecting it. And
Well,
if it
we're
was-
so close, might as well take advantage of it.
If it was mine.
You connect it.
So,
You and Home Depot.
and it is like modestly done, so in the future, like something that was added later could be removed and the original.
You wouldn't damage the fabric.
Right, thank you.
you're just gonna have that one weird tie-in.
Yeah.
It is something to consider though, because I just mean how you finish that detail, just from a weather standpoint, you know what I'm saying, as an architect and as builders, just how you end that component and how it flashes into the building and all of that. Because just ending it like that does open it up to a lot more problems.
You mean it's Florida, water does what it wants.
And it's a corner.
Water will get in everywhere.
Yep. Great.
Where are we?
Anybody comfortable making a motion?
Yes.
Don't forget the design exception, please.
Yes. I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 21-555 for the property located at 307 East Oak Avenue with the following conditions: that the design exception be applied for and approved, and that consideration is given to how the exposed corner of the connecting piece is terminated and approved by staff. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale, materials, and quality of the materials is maintained.
Do you understand the conditions?
Yes.
Okay.
I second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so.
Aye.
We have a unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we are done for the evening. Thank you all for your patience, for your caring.
For those that are coming, my thing actually be very quick.